Hello, I'm Andrew Nichols. This is CBC News Network, and we have special, extensive coverage of the severe weather hitting the Greater Toronto Area, a midsummer deluge.
And I'm Dwight Drummond. A line of severe storms has dumped torrential rains on much of southern Ontario today, causing flooded roadways and widespread power outages. We're on top of all developments in Canada's biggest city and beyond. This is a CBC News Network special.
These images from Toronto's train and subway hub, Union Station. We are tracking severe weather right across southern Ontario that is also now moving into Quebec. Torrential downpours have caused dangerous flooding on roads and on highways. Police say part of the Don Valley Parkway, a major highway in Toronto, has been closed. And we've actually also heard from Toronto Fire Services that they had to rescue an individual inside their car, as well as somebody that was on the roof of their car on the Don Valley Parkway. Flooding has also been reported in other parts of the Greater Toronto Area. Now, Environment Canada says some places could be swamped by up to 125 millimeters of rain before the day is over. We should let you know that the rainfall warning has ended for Toronto, but you can just see the impact, flooding in so many areas. We're also tracking power outages across Toronto. Toronto says that the City of Toronto says 167,000 customers, that's just customers, are without power. Now, we heard from the Mayor of Toronto, Olivia Chow, a short time ago, telling us a little bit more about the widespread flooding and the power outages in the city. Let's watch.
We are experiencing a severe rainstorm. There's flooding. Please be safe. Don't drive on flooded roads and stay away from streams and rivers, shorelines. Toronto Emergency Management is monitoring the situation, and we will close the roads when it's unsafe. And city crews are out there clearing water basins so that there's less flooding, so we can reopen the roads. So far, emergency services are not impacted. And I do want to talk a bit about climate change. It's real. We are expecting sort of almost doubling the number of severe rainstorm days in 15 years. So we have to redouble our effort to have mitigating actions because we have to do more prevention work. Open for some questions.
What more can the city do to prepare for events like this?
Well, clearing the water basins, and if you're talking about long-term mitigation effort, providing incentives for homeowners and for people that have big parking space because the stormwater are not running off properly, the ground is not absorbing the rain. As a result, the runoff is severe and it causes even more flooding. And that's one of the reasons why basements are flooded. So the more porous the ground, the more rain it can absorb, and therefore less runoff, less flooding. So there are some incentives the city can do, and we're examining all of those. That's prevention work, but for people that are stuck on the roads and because of power outage, because some of the subway stations are closed, because of the flooding, people in this building, some floors we can't use, the basement down here are flooded. It is a severe problem, and we really seriously have to deal with climate change because these kind of days are going to be a lot more frequent.
In terms of the leaks that we're seeing here at City Hall, do you have any idea what the issue is, how bad the problem is?
Yes. On the second floor, I got to the bottom of it. It's the pipes that are leaking, and when we fix one area, it's just have more pressure, and then the other areas are leaking. Crew were around all weekend trying to fix it, but it's still nowhere near done. So you see flooding in some parts of City Hall. And yesterday when I was heading out. I noticed all the staircase are leaking. So City Hall is an old building. You see that we need to do a lot more repairs in the city, but we'll do what we can, and we are massively investing in the state of good repair so that there's less flooding going forward.
These are roof drainage pipes, right? They're not water pipes, they're roof drainage.
I don't know what kind of pipes they are. I just look up and they are just dripping on top of me. And it moves around in one area and then it gets patched and then another area leaks. So it's just continuously leaking every time it rains.
Back to the larger state of good repair in the city, though, when we're talking about roads being flooded, you're often talking about the amount of money that's needed to try and fix these things. How far away are we from actually repairing the things that need to be repaired and preventing this from happening?
At the executive committee today, there's $2 billion that's been freed up because of the uploading of the Gardner and DVP. We are so grateful for the new deal. And it goes a long way to fixing some of the older infrastructures, like subway stations that are flooding right now, right? St. Patrick, Union Station, all of them are old. So $500 million to TDC, et cetera, but it's nowhere near enough. We are $26 billion short over 10 years to fix the old infrastructure. So I do what I can, and to prevent buildings from leaking, from basement, from flooding, all of those things. So let's work together. Torontonians are very resilient. We can get through this. I hope no one is stuck in elevators because of the power outage. That would be horrible. I see cars abandoned in the roadway because of flooding. And I just hope people stay away from lakes, shorelines, streams because of the flooding. It can just rush in, right? It could be dangerous.
When it comes to the DVP, it is flooded before. It is there's issues with flooding today. Why was it not shut down early enough?
I cannot answer that question. I was assured that the emergency service and the management team have been activated early today, this morning, and we know the rain, we can tell it's coming. Maybe the severity of it caught people by surprise, I don't know, but it certainly caught other people by surprise. I had staff that had to go home because the houses are flooding, the ceiling are leaking. So I don't know why DVP wasn't closed. There are some sections that are flooding, and they have closed different lanes when it's necessary, and we'll continue to monitor that.
But is that going to be something in the coming days? You're going to want more answers on the procedure around it, whether it should be closed earlier to prevent people from having to be rescued or anything like that?
Anytime there's an emergency, we need to review whether we've done everything we can, both on the prevention side and the support side when the crisis happens. So, of course, there will be a review so that we, if there are some things we can improve on, I'll guarantee you we will know about it.
What other roads are we looking to possibly shut down due to flooding at the moment?
I can't give you that information at this point. It depends on where the flooding is. Usually it's around rivers, where there's Humber, the Rouge, the in this case, the Don River. So there are several rivers and ravines that surround the city. And those are areas that if there are roads beside Humber, Rouge, Don, those are areas that I would imagine if there's flooding, that would happen. Also, if it's beside a huge area that has no stormwater runoff possibility, then the opportunity for flooding is more severe.
That was Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow addressing the media last hour.
Toronto's main transportation hub, Union Station, is also experiencing major flooding. We're joined now by CBC's Lisa Shing, who is there at Union Station. Lisa, we know you just got down there, but what can you tell us in these early stages as people head there trying to head home and may not be able to do that right now?
No, exactly. Union Station here is flooded. It is actually pretty chaotic on the streets right now. It looks like 5 o'clock at rush hour because I was able to speak with some people on my way down, and they were telling me that a lot of the companies and the businesses who have offices downtown have closed for the day because of the power outage. So they've all been sent home early. So I'm going to just kind of step out of the way to give you a look. Lots of people heading to Union Station, maybe not knowing about the situation inside. And as I was also coming down here, a lot of water pooling in the parks that I passed by, places that I at least haven't personally seen water pooling before, and a lot of power outages, the power outages affecting things here. Fire truck going by as well. And I can tell you about 175,000 customers are affected by the power outage as well. So it's really going to affect the commute home, as the day has kind of wrapped up for a lot of people, at least pretty early here. The usual rush hour traffic made worse. I don't know if you can see kind of over my shoulder, but made worse by the fact that the streetlights are out. And so it's hard to get through the intersections on a normal day, but right now it's even worse because cars are pretty much at a standstill. So take a look at Union Station here and the flooding that has been going on. So we're still trying to get updates as we go about the situation inside the building. TTC stations as well. A lot of them were shut down due to flooding too, but we're also getting word right now that some of the service is starting up again. So a lot more developing as the afternoon goes on, but definitely a bit of a busy and a chaotic scene here at Union Station, Dwight.
Yeah, we forget, Lisa, that when the power goes out, so does the stoplights, and they do become four-way stops, and in a busy downtown intersection like that, that is going to cause some major headaches. Are people confused when they get to where you are? Do they understand that they may not have service at Union Station right now? Are they getting there and surprised to find what's happening?
Yeah, so a lot of people kind of milling around, waiting. A lot of people waiting to find out what's going on. But they're saying, we're out for the day, but kind of not a lot of ways to get home currently. But I think, now that the rain has stopped, no more sheets and sheets of rain like we were seeing this morning. Some people, are making the most of it because they're done work early for the day.
Look at the pictures of Union Station. Like, people are literally wading through the water in Union Station right now. Are they letting people into the building because the power's out? You've got this water there. It seems like it could be a danger, maybe.
You would think so, but I'm seeing people stream into the building. Some of them are walking back out, I think, waiting out the situation. But as I've been here for the last 20 minutes or so, people are still streaming in. I don't know if you can see that, but they're steadily going in. So I don't know. I don't know if there's a lot of information right now, considering that, phones are down for a lot of people too.
Yeah, it is hard for folks to get information with the power out. Hopefully some folks are able to see what we're broadcasting here. We appreciate your time down there. Lisa, you're going to stay down there for us and continue with that situation. Any updates you can get us as to what is going on inside Union Station would also be helpful, because we need to tell people what's going to happen when they get down there. If their GO trains are running, we know the TTC has stations shut down, etc. Lisa Shing reporting from Toronto's Union Station right now that has been flooded as part of this major deluge the GTA is dealing with. Thank you, Lisa.
Anytime, Dwight.
And so this is the scene that you're looking now. The rainfall warning has ended for the city of Toronto. You can see a little bit of sunshine there around Union Station, but this has affected 175,000 people. I think we just lost that feed, but can you see me here back in the studio? I'm not sure whether you can or not. Oh, here we go. Yes, 167,000, over 175,000 people that are without power. We're also learning, and Lisa Shing on the ground there at Union Station, but we also have online reporters, and this is what we're learning from them, as well as Toronto Fire. Toronto Fire says that they've actually rescued 12 people from flooding on the Don Valley Parkway, including one person from their car's roof and one person inside their car. The Don Valley Parkway is a major highway north and south in and out at the sort of eastern part of the city of Toronto. So they've had some rescues. They've also, crews have been getting a high number, extremely high number of calls related to flooding and elevator entrapments. Now, we heard from the mayor of Toronto, Olivia Chow, a short time ago saying that she hopes that people are not trapped in elevators. Well, Toronto fire crews are saying that, in fact, they are getting those calls. So, Dwight, this is obviously a serious situation of people trapped in their cars having to be rescued by Toronto Fire, and also these high number of calls of people with flooded basements, but also obviously concerning when people get trapped in an elevator. This city is a city of condos. So
it really is, and for people, especially in the downtown, to try to get out of these buildings or into these buildings is going to be difficult. We're also hearing, some sewage issues with some of the flooding in the city, which is causing problems for people in their basements. We are told from some of our reporting, because we do have crews out there working on this, as Andrew said, the outages are happening right across the city. They do not have an estimated restoration time yet from Toronto Hydro. They're asking residents to also be careful out there and avoid downed wires, and to call 911 if they're able to at this point, Andrew.
yeah, I mean, look at these images. I'm trying to figure out exactly where this is. Is that maybe around Ontario Place? That's a DVP.
That is the DVP.
That is the Don Valley
yes.
Parkway.
And it looks like the on-ramp maybe from Bayview Bloor, but you can see that, the water is almost up to the window in some of those cars, and this is a shot. And people that come to Toronto, they know Lakeshore, they know Ontario Place right across. It's between the CNE and Ontario Place. That's where you're looking at right now. And we've had instances in the past where the Lake Ontario has actually come all the way over, Andrew, and covered that road. And it is like a lake driving through that area right now. We can see police are on scene.
And we can also tell you that, for instance, near the corner of King Street and Atlantic Avenue, that there's been some flash flooding there, that some crews have had to abandon some heavy construction machinery. A pickup truck was seen half submerged in water. I've seen scenes of somebody that just had, his car, I don't know exactly where it was, but it was somewhere in downtown Toronto where the car was just submerged, almost sort of past the kind of headlights, and just, locked it and walked away, kind of waist high in the water. And just look at some of these.
We don't hear about in the GTA rescues from people stuck on the roofs of their car, and that is happening. This is the
Don Valley, right?
Yes, that is the Don Valley right now, which looks like a river right now. It's some of those cars. I wouldn't drive through that with certain vehicles because you might get stuck. Now, we did have Environment Canada issue a rainfall warning for the city on Tuesday morning, so we knew we were going to get some rain. Nothing to this level, though, Andrew, with the risk of thunderstorms continuing into the afternoon and evening. Now, we're hoping that the thunderstorms have stopped, that the rainfall warning is no longer in effect this afternoon. The warning was no longer in effect by early afternoon, but the damage has been done. Roadways in many parts of the city flooded. This is from our reporting here online. TTC and GO Transit service also disrupted, and that's what we're worried about, the folks heading to Union Station, thinking they might be able to get home, and they're going to be in for a surprise down there because service is being disrupted. And as we just showed folks there, the DVP blocked in both directions due to flooding.
So for more on all this, we want to bring in David Phillips now. He's a senior climatologist and with Environment and Climate Change Canada. He's joining us from Barrie, Ontario. So David, this is really quite a severe weather event happening in the country's largest city. Some of the images are just, did this catch you, or did this, it seems to have caught a lot of people by surprise, just how much rain fell in such a short period of time, causing such widespread flooding?
Oh, Andrew, you're absolutely right. It's a surprise in terms of it was well forecasted, and the amounts were there in the forecast. But boy, when you actually see them falling in a city as huge as Toronto, it becomes really devastating. And I think the story is really about all of the rain we've had really this spring and early summer. If you take a look from April right through to yesterday, we've had about almost 166% of what you normally would get. And so that's a lot of rain. The grounds are saturated, the river courses are full. It is really, we could do with very little rain for the rest of the summer. But also, it was raining a lot of days. So it was like a water torture test, Andrew, as we were seeing, and heavy amounts of rain. I looked at the number of days in the last 3 months we've had, say, above 25 millimeters of rain You normally would see 1 or 2 days. We had 6 of those days. So heavy amounts of rain. We've seen, as you say, 96, almost 100 millimeters of rain at Pearson, 76 downtown, Kitchener, 62 millimeters of rain up till noon. And it started raining about, we saw 3 hours of thunderstorms with heavy rain. You can get a thunderstorm without any rain, with a little bit of rain, but these were heavy amounts of rain. And you could tell, Andrew, because what was happening was the visibility dropped from, say, 16 kilometers per hour at the beginning of the storm down to less than 2. In other words, you couldn't see the other side of the road, or the rain was coming so intensely. It was like a blizzard in a way. And so the visibility was cut down, the rain was accumulating. And of course, Andrew, this is the new reality. It used to be river flooding, and now it's urban flooding, with so much pavement, asphalt, and building material, and less grass and parkland to absorb, and where the rain could percolate. It falls and immediately goes into the sewer systems, and they're overloaded. And so you end up with power outages, you end up with intersections flooded, roads flooded. It's not a surprise to see Toronto like it is, although the amount of rain is clearly quite significant. One of the other big rainstorms we've had was from Hurricane Hazel 70 years ago from this year. But this one, that was about 125. I think this was getting very close to it. And the day's not finished. We could still see the rainfall warning has ended, but we could still see some more rains coming from later in the day. It was clearly
it's something we're looking at. I just want to let our viewers know what we keep showing these images. That's Union Station, which is a major subway and commuter hub station. People kind of wading through the water there. Just some of these images of the Don Valley Parkway just completely submerged. Toronto Fire saying at least 12 people had to be rescued there. These are the images of the Don Valley Parkway, a major highway at the eastern part of Toronto, and you can just see the cars driving through all of this. Did the forecast, I know the forecast did call for rain today, but was this a little bit of a surprise just in terms of these images? You know, there just seems to be so much water, and the drains were just not able to absorb it.
Well, that's the modern sort of urban effect, is the fact that we have so little area to absorb and percolate it. I mean, it used to be when it rained, it took 8 hours to get down to the water table. Now it takes 8 minutes to get into the sewer system. So there's an immediate overflow of water. I think from a meteorological point of view, I mean, we had a very heavy rain yesterday, one hour of thunderstorms. We had 3 or 4 hours of the same amounts of heavy. And it was the intensity, Andrew. I mean, we saw 30 millimeters of rain in 30 minutes. I mean, that is just rivals what you'd see in a jungle kind of a situation. The heavy amounts of rain in a short period of time, it would just tax the infrastructure. And they were sort of like, we described them as training forecasts. And training meaning a freight train. It's like there was a line of storms from London to west part of Toronto that lined up there like a parade, like jumbo jets in the airport tarmac. And there was storm on top of storm coming in one after the other, dropping their load of precipitation. And there was no deviation from that. It just was a straight line coming in right into Toronto. And normally these storms can be at a different axis, and so you get maybe a couple of hours of it, and then it moves on to somebody else. But this was almost just a parade or a freight train of loaded cargoes of moisture coming, and a pipeline of moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. This was very moist, very slow-moving kind of system. So from a meteorological point of view, this is not your garden variety thunderstorm that we could often see in the summertime. This was unique. It'll be written about for years, but it is showing the vulnerability of a city like Toronto or like Montreal and other major cities when we see these heavy, almost Texas gully washers in a way, a heavy dump of rain in a short period of time. This went on for several hours.
Maybe just one final question to you, Dave, and that is, there are some questions about why are people driving in this? Should the city have been more proactive? I mean, right, no, but what do you do to kind of prepare for this so that people are not stranded in their vehicles on a major highway And then there's, of course, the concern about people being stuck in elevators. St. Joseph's Hospital in the city's West End, the power is out there. We're trying to get, more information about all of this. But, I mean, it is concerning, and lots of people's homes are flooded as well. There's concern around downed power lines. I mean, this can be a dangerous event.
Oh, expensive, dangerous, impactful. It is all of that. And, I mean, in many ways, I mean, you can hear the forecast, but, the impact is so different. It's not just your ordinary thunderstorm. It is something that you would see almost historic in a way, but yet we're seeing occurring more often. I mean, this could very well be a climate change connection in the sense that we know when it rains heavier than it used to. And this could certainly be an element of that. But maybe it's also, I hate to say it, bad luck. It may just have been that we were set up, for it. The system didn't divert. But it just shows you, Andrew, how vulnerable modern society is to nature. You can't get away from it. You're just left there with, and we've just become so automatic and technologically dependent. And so when something like this happens to take out that technology, boy, we're standing there in the water, and it's not a pretty situation. It's life-threatening and certainly inconvenient and very expensive. The toll will be humongous when we finally see the flooded. You can't have one basement flooded. It costs somebody about $50,000. So you can just multiply that across the city and the intersections, the cars. And it's true, Andrew, the cars, I just, that flood, it's got a speed to it. It doesn't take much of a water rise to push you down in the rain. So it's very a dangerous kind of a situation here. And hey, the worst is over, but my gosh, it's something that I think we need to understand, that these things happen once and they're going to happen again.
Dave, always good to get your insight on this. What an extraordinary day. Thank you. David Phillips is a senior climatologist with Environment and Climate Change Canada.
We're going to continue on this topic and this theme because it's what the GTA is dealing with right now in Canada's largest city. Let's bring in Slobodan Simonovic. He's a professor emeritus of civil and environmental engineering at Western University. He's also the director of engineering works for the Institute of Catastrophic Loss Reduction. Slobodan, thanks so much for making time for us right now. When you see scenes like what's happening right now in the Greater Toronto area, what goes through your mind?
Oh, it's a kind of reminder that, these type of events are going to occur more and more frequently. I think we were used to past that is not going to be representative of the future anymore. And therefore, in my mind, is always, what can we do and how can we respond to this? How can we adapt to these kind of situations? And how, obviously, from the professional point of view, I can be, and my work can be of some help.
Yeah, our last guest kind of pointed to some of the infrastructure issues we're dealing with. And this is an infrastructure problem on top of climate change. We could say this amount of rain came down in a very short period of time. Quite obviously, our infrastructure wasn't able to handle it. So what can be done to fix that?
There are a number of things. I think one of the essential or the starting point is to fully accept the fact that we need to accommodate all our engineering efforts to changing climate, bringing the climate change into revision of the design standards, developing the procedures for fighting emergencies and so on. They all need to take that into account. I see a huge gap between the kind of theory and research being done in the area of climate change and the practical application. That transfer needs to be improved, and I think much more needs to be done at the level of, especially the level of municipalities like Toronto. So revision of standards will be the first step, and the second step is to look into other measures that can improve our resilience and reduce the risk, like improved floodplain or flood risk mapping, introduction of different measures. The previous speaker was talking about potential damage to private properties. The Institute for Catastrophic Loss Reduction contains tons of recommendations what can be done on the lot level to minimize the potential damage from the events like this.
So, Professor Simonovic, I mean, it seems like you're saying the technology is there, but is it the will then of politicians and others not keeping up our infrastructure? Is this something that we're going to have to get used to as a result of global warming if we don't put those two things together?
I think we have to acknowledge that this is going to continue happening more frequently, and I think the magnitude of this event is definitely on the rise. The way how to convince the politicians and also participate in this process of finding the appropriate adaptation measures needs to include all the possible expertise as well as the public that can be affected. In my opinion, we have to put a lot of pressure and carefully, budget for these adaptation processes. There are some measures that can be introduced. I think previous speaker was mentioning, kind of going into these nature-based solutions, providing a little bit, I would add, providing a little bit more space for the rivers and creeks, designing new infrastructure with the climate change impact inside that process. But this is not yet being fully done. I think Mayor of Toronto was talking earlier, and she mentioned, huge deficit of $26 billion, city being short. These measures cost money. However, the damage will cost money.
Yes.
So finding the balance and finding the solutions that will improve that, I think is essential.
It is that balance that we have to worry about. And it seems like this is something that we're going to have to get used to as a result of global warming. And my question to you then, Professor, is anyone making the necessary resources available to improve the infrastructure of our cities to deal with events like this that you say will be coming more often? These once-in-a-lifetime events seem to be happening every year or every other year.
There are examples. I think, of the efforts of first updating the standards and municipal infrastructure design, water infrastructure design is utilizing the extreme rainfall events as a design criteria. And there are some efforts to update the information and not rely only on the historical information, but take also into consideration what will happen in the future. That means kind of bringing climate change into it. There are efforts in different municipalities. There are different levels. But I think we are still pretty far from, properly and updating, and kind of bringing this information to the level that is really necessary.
Just to finish up, it seemed like you're saying even though we have the technology, we're still not doing enough to deal with these events, and they are coming more often. So a last word to you. How do we fix this? How do we deal with this better in the future, Professor?
I think I already mentioned. I would definitely go in improving and modifying, revising, the design standards.
So I just want to make sure we're understanding you, and I don't want to interrupt you. But the old systems that we have, right, are set up for different weather patterns in the past. What we're getting now, we're not ready for these new weather patterns that we're experiencing, is what you're saying.
Yeah, we are not ready. The infrastructure that we have is designed really for the kind of historical conditions, and these events have a very different nature. You see the intensity, you see the frequency being changed. But how do you respond to that? Do you allow further development close to the river, close to water bodies? What do we introduce as a standards for municipal infrastructure inside the private homes? How do we incentivize individuals to bring and do everything possible in their power to kind of minimize the local damage? And then it comes the question of investment that different levels of government needs to provide in order to minimize the damage. try to increase the resilience, and in a way kind of reduce the risk as much as possible.
Yes, and that's the plan. And you talk about putting buildings near these areas. Well, Toronto's planning to put a major spa and a science center right down there by the lakeshore that's been flooded today. So we do have to think about these things for the future. Slobodan Simonovic is a professor emeritus of civil and environmental engineering at Western University. Appreciate your insights on this, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we've been telling you about the major flooding and the power outages that are happening in Toronto and in and around Toronto. Well, next door to the west of the city in Mississauga, we have some new information that we want to tell you about, and this is coming from Mississauga Fire, and this is what they have had to say. And these are the images here. Firefighters are checking the approximately 50 cars located on Queen Frederica Drive to ensure nobody is stranded in their vehicles. Numerous rescues are ongoing throughout the city that all rescue teams have been deployed. And I'm just trying to get a better look at and see, yeah, so you can see their fire crews. I can't tell whether that's a raft or if they're... It is a raft, right, Dwight? Yeah, there you go. So, I mean, that is a serious situation.
Yeah. And that looks like a road that is now a river, yes.
That is a road that is now a river. Wow. Again, this is from Mississauga Fire, so this is a major city of around 800,000 people just on the western, just to the west of the city of Toronto. Again, firefighters checking the approximately 50 cars located on Queen Frederica Drive to ensure nobody is stranded in the vehicles. Numerous rescues are ongoing throughout the city. All rescue teams have been deployed. And then we also told you about the Don Valley Parkway, where 12 people have had to be rescued, including one person from inside their vehicles, as well as another person from on the roof of their vehicle on the Don Valley Parkway on the east end of Toronto, a major highway on the east end of Toronto. We have heard there are about 167,000, maybe 170,000 customers in the city of Toronto that are without power, including calls about people being stranded in elevators. These are images of the Don Valley Parkway, and that is the Don River there right next to it, Dwight. And you can just see, I mean, look at that.
It is.
I mean,
it will overflow
in
the banks. Yeah, it's overflowing the banks onto the highway, and that's the warning that we are getting from the environmental teams in the city to be careful, especially if you live near any of these rivers, like the Humber, like the Don, that you have to be extra careful because they are overflowing their banks, and we can see it right now. That looks like a downtown office building.
It does look like a downtown office building. Is that Union Station?
That
Union Station. Look at that. I mean,
coming
that is a
out
waterfall.
of the station. The stairs look like a waterfall. And our Lisa Shing is down there gathering for us, and we hope to check back in with her for an update on the situation at Union Station. Because as you know, if you live in the city, this is where people go to head home. It is the major commuting hub. It's the biggest commuting hub in the country. And a lot of people have been forced out of their offices because of the power outages, and now they're heading to this spot that's also dealing with the same issues that sent them there, and it's going to be a confusing time for people trying to commute home because GO train...
Will they be able to? This is inside
buses, yes.
Union Station, so we've been showing these images for a while. People
all the businesses in there are closed up, as you can see. It is hard for people. I mean, they have no power. So all the restaurants, everything there, and it's just people kind of confused, wading through the water, and they're trying to figure out what to do next. And that's just an incredible image of the water flowing out of Union Station like that.
I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. Again, here we're looking again at some images that we've been showing you from earlier.
And you can't tell, Andrew, where the road ends and the river begins, because you can see the water's actually now at one.
That's right. Yeah. Kind of
yes.
At the bottom of your screen is the actual river. Yeah. And then just
and look at that car right there. That car, yes, I hope, there shouldn't be anybody in that vehicle because it is right up to the windows.
Unbelievable. All right, so then we have that situation on the Don Valley Parkway, and again, Mississauga Fire, as we were telling you, they're checking about 50 cars on Queen Frederica Drive in Mississauga to make sure people aren't stranded inside. All of their rescue teams have been deployed. Obviously, you want to make sure this is the...
And Andrew, I mean, we've covered this stuff all over North America, but I don't think we've ever seen something like that in Mississauga, not in recent times anyway.
I don't think so. And just the idea that all their rescue teams are deployed, there's 50 cars that they're searching to make sure no one's stranded inside. I mean, just having people being rescued from the roof of their car on the Don Valley Parkway. I mean, it's obviously a serious situation.
And a lot of those teams out there trying to help us are worried about their own homes and flooding in their own basements. It is just really a mess in the city right now.
It sure is. So let's just find out what it was like in that storm. And we've reached Emma Badame, who can tell us. She lives in Toronto. She is joining us. Oh, you're joining us from neighboring Mississauga. And look at that.
Yes.
I mean, the sunshine is out, right? So what a contrast. Can you tell us what it was like when you were in the storm?
Absolutely. We were making our way from Toronto into Mississauga and making our way down from Burnhamthorpe on Dixie Road, so heading down towards the lake and towards the lake shore. And like Dwight was just saying there, that you couldn't see where the road ended and the curb kind of began. It was that high. And just flowing into the street, like the street had become a total river, and they'd had to close right where the GO train travels. Closer to the lake shore, they've had to close the underpass there because it was completely impassable. And the water just kept rising while we were driving. It started, kind of, oh, we can do this. And then you get to a point where you're like, oh, we're essentially fording a river at this point.
Wow.
And that's not kind of what we set out to do or were expecting.
So tell me, and so then what did you do when you realized you were kind of driving in a river, which was a road?
Well, there was so much, it's such a busy thoroughfare in Mississauga that you basically just had to kind of wait in line to then U-turn to come back north again. So it wasn't particularly scary, but it was getting a little dicey where you're like, I don't know how long we can stay still here given the amount of water that's rushing onto the street. But the police were there and were directing traffic by that point, so they were keeping an eye on things. So that made it feel a little bit safer and a little bit less scary.
And I understand we have some video that you recorded and have posted on X, right? Are we going to be able to show that?
Yes.
So we're going to try and show that. Right now we're looking at the Don Valley Parkway, but you've also got some video. This is the video that you have, and so this is what it looks like. I mean, that is just an unbelievable amount of water. Can you just kind of, describe what it was like as you were going through it?
Yeah, it was, everybody was taking it very easy. Nobody was doing anything that would have caused any issues. I think everybody was being very safe, but it was quite a bit higher than I've experienced. It did bring to mind the flood we had back in the early 2010s, I think 2012, 2013, when there were similar cases like that. And I know that some people had their cars destroyed by flash flooding, so it was in the back of my mind. But again, with the police there and kind of directing traffic, it felt like they had it in hand to some extent, just hoping that there was no more flash flooding. There is a creek, the Etobicoke Creek runs right there, so I wasn't sure how much of that might be also a consideration, given that the banks are overflowing in quite a few places.
And what about your home?
As far as I know, we don't. I live actually near the Humber River, and I know that we don't have power, and I'm sure that there are some areas flooded around there in underpasses around the subway. So I'm curious. I'm close to Old Mill Station, and I bet that there is probably some flooding there. It tends to flood when there gets to be a lot of rain consistently like this.
Wow, this just must have been quite a day for you. I mean,
it was an adventure. Yeah, put it that way.
And so now, what are you going to do?
We had lunch plans, and those were kind of canceled. So we basically went on an adventure to find a place that had power and wasn't flooded. So I think that's next on the agenda is actually just sitting down and taking it all in for a minute.
And so what a contrast. So now there's blue sky behind you. So did it just kind of, tell us a little bit about that? Because I just want to mention, people may have noticed this is not all that important to a lot of people that are going through, but that you heard a little bit of a cheer in the background here because the lights went back on here at the broadcasting center. So that's why people are able to kind of power back up here. But, what were you saying just about like what this has been like, and now the sunshine is out?
It's a complete contrast. It's really hot. There's a nice wind. It's beautiful and sunny, and you wouldn't know. Everything is dried up in this particular area. We're kind of by Square One right now, so that's like Burnhamthorpe and the 427 kind of area.
By a big shopping mall.
And it's yeah, exactly. So that might be a point for people that they're familiar with, but you wouldn't know that anything had happened here. It's all dry. And bright and sunny. It's a real contrast.
So, and around, you don't see the flooding anymore. It seems to have kind of washed away around where you are?
Yeah, I think I do think in terms of the kind of topography, I think this area is a bit higher, so I'm not sure that you would get the same flooding. There were kind of small pockets when we came along the road closer to here, but not anything like what we saw closer to Etobicoke Creek and kind of down towards the lakeshore.
Emma, good of you to take the time to talk to us about this. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Emma Bedine in Mississauga, Ontario.
One of Toronto's main transportation hubs, Union Station, is also experiencing major flooding. We're joined by CBC's Lisa Shing, who is there on the scene for us. And Lisa, before I get to, we're here that some fire trucks are trying to head to your location, heading in that direction, having trouble outside of the CBC building right now on Front Street, trying to get over to you at Front and York. We're learning of another rescue of some people. They say were stranded. What can you tell us about that near Union Station, Lisa?
Yeah, Dwight. So we are learning about those 12 people who were stranded. It was actually, we're hearing on the Don Valley Parkway, so the major artery that runs alongside the Don River in the city's east end, where Toronto Fire said they rescued 12 people from flooding right on that highway, and one person was actually stuck on a car roof and had to be rescued as a result of flooding. We're also hearing that both directions of the Don Valley Parkway are closed as a result of flooding. So needless to say, traffic is a mess in the city, and quite a large part of it. Right behind me here, usually you know, there's quite a bit of rush hour traffic here at Union Station. As you said, Dwight, it is a transit hub here in the city. A lot of commuters come through this, but it is busier than usual. It's also more congested than usual as a result of the fact that many of the traffic lights are down in this area. And I was coming here even. It's really at a standstill. You know, cars can't get through. Pedestrians can barely get through. It operates like a four-way stop with quite a lot of traffic. So here at Union Station, I just took a walk inside to see what was going on, because there's been so many people who have been let out from work early who work in the downtown area. You can see them kind of streaming past me, and a lot of them are trying to wait it out because there's flooding in Union Station. You can see pictures of several inches of water and people, lots of people, trying to wade through that water to get to the trains. And I spoke with some staff earlier as well, say that there's a really limited number of trains that are actually running. I believe the GO train to Kitchener is running, as well as Lakeshore West. But if they are, and they're on a major delay. I spoke with a Via train employee as well, who says the trains are running, but prepared to be extremely delayed because of the power outages. So this weather, or the effects of the weather, is really has the city at a bit of a standstill right now. So we're still getting more information as we go along, but a lot of waiting around, especially if you're commuting, Dwight.
Lisa, we're just up the street from you at the CBC Broadcast Center, and we just got some power back. As I look around the room here, I see some computers coming back up. What is happening down at Union Station? Are the lights back up for the four-way stop there by Union Station? Are the traffic lights working again? And do you know if they have power back on in the building there?
So I just went in the building. Some of the lights are back on in Union Station. And as I'm looking past me and behind me, the two lights closest to the intersection are back on. And there was also another one, I think, at the main intersection at Spadina and Fort York that were also working, but that's really it, because and we don't know how fast crews are working. They say they're working as fast as they can to restore power, but considering roughly 175,000 customers are affected, needless to say, it's not going to happen overnight.
I know you already touched on this a bit, but just one more time for folks who are thinking about heading down to Union Station. You've been talking to employees down there. What's their advice about folks trying to head there to head home?
essentially patience. Wait it out. Because there's not a lot of trains running and they're on major delays, it seems like a lot of people are taking that advice. There are people just hanging out in the shade. A lot of people kind of speaking with their friends as well. Let me see if I can get over there just to kind of give you a sense of some of these people waiting here. And trying to see if, you know, that main, I guess that main bit of traffic, foot traffic, will blow over, and hopefully when the trains are up and running again, they can be as well.
You know, I've tried to do this, and what Lisa is doing down there at Union Station right now with that phone is not easy, and she's doing a great job. Thank you for that, Lisa Shing, CBC's Lisa Shing at Toronto's Union Station.
And the CBC's Trisha Kindleman is close to Union Station. Trisha, tell us a little bit about where you are in... Oh, I think we may have lost Trisha. Do we have Trisha Kindleman, who's also near Union Station? We're hoping to connect with her. You know, it's been a little bit challenging here as the power has gone out. The power has come back on here. And Dwight, at the Broadcasting Center, the lights are back on. As you can see behind us, it was a little bit of a mad scramble just before 1 o'clock. The power went out here. The power went out in much of the city. I mean, when we say 170,000 customers, that doesn't mean 170,000 people. No. It could be many, hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, there could be 4 or 5 people in each of those homes, etc.
Or a building like ours where there's hundreds, if not thousands, of people working. We heard about the hospital in the west end of Toronto. I don't have the latest update on that, but all of these images that we're seeing, it is a bright and sunny day right now in Toronto, but wow.
What we went through. And what's interesting is what we're dealing with, but that we were dealing with it here at the CBC as the rest of the city was also trying to deal with it because we lost power. And, you know, some of our own co-workers, one of my co-workers had to run home because his wife called him and said there's sewage coming in from the backup from the sewers into their home. So we know firsthand what the city's had to deal with today, and it has been a bad one. A severe storm left many of Toronto's streets flooded, including the DVP, which looks like a river right now with cars stuck in the water there. And as Andrew was saying, 100 and almost 70,000 customers in our city without power right now as we look at some of these pictures. Now, we are hearing that the outages are coming back online because we also have our power here at the city, but Toronto Hydro is also, and the city, warning people to avoid downed wires because there will be some downed wires out there, and to also call 911 if you see any downed wires anywhere in the city because crews need to get there to deal with that quickly.
And so this is a result of the reason why there were so many outages is because of suspected flooding at a Hydro One transmission station. That's what resulted in such a widespread loss of power supply to the system. And again, we've been showing you these images of Toronto as well as areas outside of Toronto, including what we were telling you a little bit earlier about Mississauga, which is a city just west of Toronto, where all the crews have been deployed and they're looking through firefighters, 50 cars,
in those dinghies,
making sure nobody's in those cars. And here are those images we were looking at before. And as you pointed out, Dwight, there's a river there.
And there's the road.
And then there's a river on the highway. That's the Don Valley Parkway and the Don River that look basically identical.
Man, all that crazy rain hit Toronto and southern Ontario very hard. And in some places, it felt like a tap was just turned on full blast right on top of the Greater Toronto area. It rapidly moved eastward. CBC science and climate specialist Darius Wadavi is tracking this wild weather. He joins us now from a dry Vancouver. Darius, what's happening with this system we're getting on this side of the country?
Well, these are what we call training thunderstorms. They're not unusual in Ontario, but the amount of rain that we're getting is very unusual. This is going to be the 5th wettest day on record for Vancouver, or not for Vancouver, for Toronto. We're not expecting to see any more rain for the city of Toronto, but those storms are continuing to track further east, and so we're going to be watching that, mostly moving into New York State, though. So if you take a look here, you can see what we've seen over the last few hours in terms of that precipitation. I'd expect to see those thunderstorms continue as they continue to move further east, but mainly what's driving this is the ability of them to draw on the cool lakefront in the area. So if we take a look here, you can see where we have watches and warnings still in place. Those rainfall warnings have since come down an hour or two ago for the city of Toronto, but in areas like Cobourg and Belleville and Kingston, we do still have those rainfall warnings in place with plenty more rainfall to come. Not likely to see as much as we saw in Toronto, but still risk of flooding there as well. If we zoom out now, we can take a look at where where we have seen that precipitation. You can see from that radar imagery all that lightning, all those storms. So in just 3 hours, or just over 3 hours, Toronto received almost 100 millimeters of rain, around 96 millimeters. That makes it, as I mentioned, the 5th wettest day on record for Toronto. Not going to touch the record from 2013, which is the last time we saw one of these major rainfall days in Toronto, because then we saw 126 millimeters of rain in a 12-hour period. That's the last time we saw a disaster like this. This is likely going to cause, even though we didn't necessarily see as much rain recorded at the Toronto airport, that's just one station. Some areas probably saw much more rain than that, and we probably are seeing more flooding than we did 10 years ago or 11 years ago in 2013. So that was a $1 billion disaster back when we saw that. So this is expected to be extremely impactful. Expect to see the ramifications of this for quite a while yet. If we zoom in here, you can see for the city of Toronto itself, where we saw that precipitation as it ran through, you can see very, very heavy rainfall for a sustained 3-hour period. That's why we saw things, as you mentioned, like the Don Valley Parkway, which is prone to flooding, become almost like a river, Union Station flooding, all these places, many reports of localized flooding. And this follows the storms that happened yesterday, which tracked through places like London, Ontario. We heard some localized flooding reports from places like Burlington and Oakville. So this has been a major system that has been rolling through. And if we take a look at what we're expecting now, most of that system is passing into New York State and then up into the northeast of the U.S. A little bit still expected for Ontario and maybe grazing the more southern parts of Quebec. But yes, this is definitely an extreme rainfall event. It's an unusual rainfall event. And so I think we'll be hearing about this for quite a while. Dwight?
Before I let you go, Darius, you said this is an unusual situation. How unusual is this?
Very much so. Like I said, top five rainfall events ever recorded in the city. So yes, Dwight, this is going to be it's quite something. Wow,
top 5 ever in the city. Thank you, Darius Madavi, our science and climate specialist, joining us from Vancouver. CBC's Trisha Kindleman is out at Union Station. We're going to try to get to her after this break. Right now, we're taking a short break. You're watching CBC News Network.
Hello, I'm Andrew Nichols. This is CBC News Network. We have special, extensive coverage of the severe weather hitting the Greater Toronto Area, a mid-summer deluge.
And I'm Dwight Drummond. A line of severe storms has dumped torrential rains on much of southern Ontario today, causing flooded roadways and widespread power outages. We are on top of all of the developments in Canada's biggest city and beyond in the CBC News Network special.
The severe weather is our top story, and the Greater Toronto Area was hit with torrential rainfall just a few hours ago. Environment Canada says nearly a month's worth of rain fell over a very short period of time, more than 100 millimeters. Streets across the region are flooded. Toronto Fire Services says it has rescued 14 people from flooding. There was also a major power outage. At one point, tens of thousands of customers were without electricity. And the heavy rainfall in Ontario is causing a number of issues, from flooding and closed roads to power outages. Jacqueline Hansen is following this story for us. Jacqueline, where are you and what's going on there? I think we're just having some trouble connecting. Yeah, we are obviously having trouble connecting with Jacqueline, but she is out and about in all of this. So we're going to try and reconnect with her as soon as we can.
Yeah, we'd really like to hear from Jacqueline, so we will check back with her. Right now, we're joined by Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow. Mayor, thank you for joining us. Could we start with your message for Torontonians tonight, Mayor Chow, dealing with this mess in our city?
Please be safe, be patient, do not drive on flooded roads, stay away from rivers, streams, because the city is surrounded by both the Lake Ontario, Humber, Don River, Rouge. Just be careful and beware of the flooding. The roads, if you can, what the Toronto Emergency Management is doing is that we'll close the road if it's flooded, if it's unsafe. And city crews out there working to clear the catch basins and the debris so water can drain. If you see some in front of you on your street, help us out so we can reopen some of the roads if it is clogged. The power, it is, there's 167,000 customers on the west and central area of Toronto that are being impacted, a large part of the city. And we're asking people to avoid calling unless it's an emergency, to keep the lines open for public safety hazard. If it is emergency, of course, call 911. If you just need some information, you can call the city line, which is 311.
Mayor, have you heard from any of the emergency services about any injuries or anybody getting hurt during this deluge? Because we know there have been some rescues, but we haven't heard of any injuries yet.
I have not heard any injuries. The emergency services are not impacted. Both fire, police, ambulance are completely, they are out in full force assisting people. And the one thing, though, is that as we approach rush hour time, because people are getting off work soon, there are in TTC a number of stations that are closed because of the flooding. So check the TTC app, TTC.ca, to see which station and map out your route home carefully. There are some bus routes that are closed because Lakeshore, for example, because the track is flooded. Harbourfront, again, no services. So anywhere near the waterfront, 510, Spadina southbound detouring. So in those areas, there are bus detours, etc. So map out your route home just carefully.
Now, we had problems here at the CBC building too. We ran out of power downtown, the power outages here. We understand you also had issues at City Hall. What issues did you have at City Hall? Because I thought I saw buckets around City Hall trying to catch rain coming through the roof.
Yes, we need some rain barrel in here. Instead, we're using our
the recycle bins.
That's right. Well, City Hall is a old infrastructure. Our building is old, it's leaking. The basement is flooded. The second floor, just outside my office, the pipes are leaking. It's not a serious flooding, but it is dripping and dripping and dripping. We've noticed this dripping have started last Wednesday, and then 2 weeks ago. So remember, there were several rainfalls,
Yes.
Not as heavy as today, but even back then it was just coming down. And we fixed one area, and then it moved on to another area because of the water pressure. There are other floors that are not that are leaking. So old infrastructure, City of Toronto. We have a backlog of state of good repair.
That's the question.
Buildings.
That's the
But
big
we're
question
fixing
today.
it. We're
Yeah,
fixing
right?
it.
You've been a politician. You've been serving the city for decades now, Mayor Chow. We've been talking about infrastructure in the city for a long time, the aging infrastructure in Toronto. Every time events like this happen, we kind of see just how bad things are. So is this impetus now to try to get some of these things fixed because we're experiencing these kind of weather events more often?
You're absolutely right. In fact, within the next 15 years, the severe rainstorms are going to double in terms of number of days that are impacted. That's really incredible because of climate change. So recently, end of last year, the City of Toronto had a new deal with the provincial government. We uploaded the Garner and the DVP so that they are now taking responsibility of it. As a result, it has freed up close to $2 billion. We are putting in all of that money to fix the TTC, to fix all the roads and infrastructure that's falling apart because it's old. So we're getting to it. In fact, today at the executive committee, which is the committee that I chair, we have reallocated the money that we're going to be able to free up into doing all this infrastructure. But having said that, we are still $26 billion, that's 9 zeros, over 10 years behind in our infrastructure work. 4 out of 10 of the buildings that belong to the City of Toronto are old and in poor shape. So we're safe, we're okay, but we have to really fix our old infrastructure.
We really
if not,
do.
the roof is going to break. Yeah, it's going to be a problem. We've also recently put in a lot more money in hydro so that the hydro infrastructure can be renewed. Same thing with the water, because all the sewage pipes are also getting old. So we're on it, but we're asking residents to be a bit patient with us. We're doing what we can. And there are things that people can do. And we'll provide, hopefully next year or maybe next year, some incentive, whether it's rain barrels or interlocking bricks in their parking area so that the ground is more porous. When the ground is more porous, the rain can get absorbed by the earth. Then it won't flood as much, right?
Yeah.
Then the basement will have better chance as less stormwater runoff.
A lot of paved services in this city.
And Mayor, it's Andrew here. I'm wondering were you caught by surprise by this? Because it seemed to just kind of, to just see some of these images of all these cars stranded in the Don Valley Parkway and just hearing about people being rescued from that major highway, hearing about, all these, emergency services being inundated by people being stuck in elevators. Did this catch the city by surprise?
I don't think so, but it came down really hard very quickly. This morning, it was hot and humid. We knew a severe storm was coming. Yesterday, later afternoon, it was severe. We are expecting this kind of severe storms. We know that it's going to be increasing every year. And you may have remembered the year that we had similar floods where GO transit stations were flooded, people were stranded on the GO train. So from time to time this happens. the more we can do to have mitigating actions, mitigating these severe storms, the better it is.
Can I just ask you, though, I mean, I understand in the future to mitigate these severe storms, but do you think, looking back at what happened, should more have been done sort of proactively? I don't know, whether to maybe block off some of the highways, some of the roads, so that we wouldn't be seeing these scenes, or there wouldn't be people that would need to be rescued. Do you have any thoughts around that?
Well, you know that Toronto has a congestion problem. We have a traffic congestion problem. If we just go and block off a highway without, the rain it's not severe enough, I'm not sure that would work, or block off a lane. We are, as soon as we realize that the road is not safe, we close it. Is it fast enough? I don't know. We will evaluate the whole situation once we are semi out of it, so that we can improve our emergency measures. They are engaged, absolutely. We have a Toronto Emergency Management team. I helped chair it, and we were engaged this morning. It has been activated. The Emergency Operations Center are coordinating all the city response to the flooding. And rest assured, if the road is unsafe, we will close it. So yes, we'll do evaluation, we will improve, we'll always want to do that.
Mayor, before I let you go, just a final question. You were mentioning earlier that how we can help in this situation. So go outside, make sure that your drains are clear, little things like that. Also, you said call 911 only for emergencies. If wires are down, people are in danger, 311 for information. Anything else you think the citizens of Toronto need to know before we let you go, Mayor?
Well, if you're about to try to get home because you're getting out of
work,
out of your workplace, or if you're trying to travel, maybe you don't want to if the area is flooded, but plan ahead. Just in case that if the roads are closed or the areas are diverted, or that the power is out in the area you're traveling to.
Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow. Sorry, go ahead, Mayor.
You can go to Toronto Hydro website to look at where the power outage. You can absolutely do that.
The specific maps there with communities that you can pinpoint and find your own. Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow joining us here on CBC News Network after, just major flooding in the Greater Toronto area this afternoon.
And for more on this, I want to bring in Constable Scott Stratton. He's with the Ontario Provincial Police Highway Safety Division. Constable, appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. So I understand that, and you tell us more, but Highway 410, which is another major highway in Brampton, another major suburb of Toronto to the northwest of the city, that it's basically like a river and that boats are being used to rescue people. What can you tell us?
Well, what I can tell you right now is that the 410 in both directions, north and southbound, right underneath the 401, is closed in both directions. The water's so high that the sergeant on scenes told me it looks just like a river flowing through there. We don't believe anybody needs to be rescued, but the fire department is out checking vehicles that are underwater at this time.
So, okay, so how high is the water, and you don't believe that anyone is in those vehicles, that people were able to get out of those vehicles?
As far as I'm aware, I don't have any information to say that anybody was in them. The fire department is checking any vehicles that are underwater. The water was as high as the tops of the vehicles.
The water was as high as the tops of the vehicles. Have you ever seen anything like this?
About 20 years ago, I recall we had a storm so big that I remember working on the 407, and the 407 ramps underneath the 400 were underwater as well. So it was something very similar. Again, the water receded pretty quickly, but it left a massive mess, and that was 20-some odd years ago.
Okay, so that's the 410. What about just generally in and around Toronto on the highways?
We still have lots of ramps that are closed all around the GTA. We're waiting for the water to recede before we can, and then check the ramps to make sure that they're safe for people to travel on them. As they open, we will let people know through our Twitter accounts and so forth.
Can you tell us just how busy you have been and how busy people have been responding to this?
Our call center has been off the hook for the last several hours. since this storm started, and it hasn't stopped. At least now, where I am right now, the sun's shining. So hopefully that's going to give us the time to let that water come away, and we get those ramps open, and then we can check to see if there's other vehicles that have stalled out and need to be towed away.
Are there areas of the city or in and around the city that are more concerned than others, where there are more vehicles that are just completely submerged, or where there's concern that there could be people inside the vehicles?
I would say right now our biggest concern is at the 410. I'm not aware of anything else in the city or in the GTA, or at least that the OPP is in charge of policing, that require any further assistance. Our biggest issue right now is on that 410 highway.
And what do you know about any rescues that have, in fact, happened, or any injuries?
I'm not aware of any injuries. I'm not aware of any rescues that have had to be taken place. All I have is some information that fire is on scene as well, and they're checking for vehicles that are there.
And can you tell me what that looks like in terms of, are they out on dinghies? Are they out, like how are they going through the 410, for instance?
Well, the fire department has some inflatable rafts, it looks like. I'm just looking at some video and pictures that were sent to me. I'm not on scene, so I can't tell you exactly other than what I've seen in the photos and videos. But the fire department has looks like a boat, looks like an inflatable boat, and they're out paddling out towards different vehicles right along the 410.
And so the water is as high as the roofs of the vehicles.
Yeah, in some spots of it is. Most of it looks like it's about halfway up the door. But in some parts, it looks like some of the vehicles are completely submerged.
That is unbelievable. Now, has it gone down, or as far as you know, is it receding, or is it still very, very high?
I can't tell you. I'm not at scene, and I don't have any updates on that right now. But when we get updates, we'll let people know. I would assume it's starting to recede as the water starts to go through the culverts and through the sewage system. It should start to recede. Just depends on how long it's going to take for that. And then all the other debris and stuff that's coming up from it, and all the mud and muck that's going to come up, it's going to be covered in the highway, and that's going to have to be cleaned afterwards as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's unbelievable. We're also looking at images, Constable, of the Don Valley Parkway, and we're seeing the Don River, and it's just kind of flooded right into the Don Valley Parkway. Is there any, which is a major highway to the east end, to the east in Toronto's eastern portion of the city? Do you have any information about that?
I don't. Actually, Toronto Police is the one that's responsible for doing the Don Valley Parkway. We do the 400 series highways just outside, around the city.
And so what about the 401 to the north of the city? What's that like?
For the last report I got is the 401 is moving really well. I haven't heard anything about the 401 other than some of the ramps in the west and in the east that are blocked due to flooding. But the highway itself, from everything I've heard, is running just fine.
What is your message to people who may be on the roads or who have been on the roads this afternoon?
Pack your patience. Take alternate routes if you can. If you can wait to go out somewhere, wait. If you don't need to go out, don't go out. It's no different than, like, I'm looking at this, as no different than a major snowstorm when we have it. There's just a lot of water, and there's really no way to get rid of it quickly. We have to wait for it. We're going to try and pump some of it out. I think that's one of the options that MTO is looking at in some of these spots, is bringing some pumper trucks to pump it out. But again, we still have to clean up the highways as well afterwards to make sure they're not covered in mud and slick and more water so that we don't have collisions occur on the highways.
So 410 is closed. What about any of the other 400 highways? Are they closed, or you said some of the ramps are closed? Any sense of when they could open again?
Yeah, I don't have any updates on that. As I get updated, we'll make sure that our Twitter accounts show when those updates happen. But right now, I have several closures. One in Cambridge. I could list them, but I'd have to. We'd be here for a while.
Yeah. Okay. A busy day for you, and appreciate you taking the time to update us. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
That's Constable Scott Stratton with the Ontario Provincial Police Highway Safety Division.
And we've reconnected with the CBC's Jacqueline Hansen. She's tracking the heavy rainfall in Ontario that's caused a number of flooding issues and closed roads and power outages. Jacqueline, what do we know about where you are? That seems like an interesting spot there. You seem like you're under a bridge or some kind there.
Yeah, we're under a bridge. We're downtown Toronto. We're not too far from the CBC, in fact, or from Union Station in the other direction. So we're right in the thick of things. However, you can see there's no traffic going either way because this whole section was flooded. In fact, you were hearing the constable there talk about water receding. I'm seeing that happening in real time because the water had been all the way up past where I'm standing at this point, and you can see it had trapped one taxi cab here. We just saw the driver come and try to start getting some of the water out of his car. The floor area of his vehicle just full of water, and he's scooping it out. Didn't take the car away, so I'm not sure if it's not in a condition to be driving it at this point. There might be a lot of that going on right now, trying to get tow trucks out to move vehicles perhaps. But yeah, you can see how much the water has receded. In fact, it was also deep on this side as well. We saw city worker coming along in his boots, shuffling along, trying to see what might be clogged, or perhaps, you never know when there's a manhole cover that might be off that can be really dangerous, something that you want to avoid. Or a big reason why you want to avoid walking in water in flooded areas, because you never know what's underneath your feet. So that's where we are right now. I can also tell you, Dwight, there's a smell to it. You can tell that there's some sewage mixed into this situation here right now. I'm out here for you, so you don't have to do it. But I'm getting all the senses out here, Dwight.
Well, I'm glad you used that S word, sewage, and not the other S word to describe where you are down there, yes, because we can imagine how bad it smells right now.
Afternoon television, right? Well, I've been talking to some people too about where they're at, and I mean, we know that some power is back on downtown. We can see the street lights are working. But in terms of traffic, my goodness, I said there's no vehicles here, but there are vehicles backed up in front of us and behind us as well. People are not getting anywhere fast. I was talking to a guy who got out. He'd been sitting there in his car for an hour, just had knee surgery. He was cramping up. He needed to take a walk and stretch his leg out. I talked to some other people who were caught in the power outage, up 33 flights of stairs downtown in one of the financial towers. They had to take those stairs down and get out, and then it's how do they get home, right? Because you heard the mayor talking about trying to find a good route home. Well, that's tricky to do if you're relying on transit to do so. I should also mention there's still a lot of emergency vehicles making their way around downtown trying to get through this very thick traffic, because, I mean, there's a lot of situations like the one here behind us where someone got trapped. He was able to get out of his vehicle, of course, and is working on figuring out that situation right now to get his car where he needs to go. I mean, that's your livelihood if you're driving a taxi cab. So it could be not just disruptive day in the moment for a lot of people, but there could be some lasting effects as well, Dwight.
And Jacqueline, where you're standing is closed, but isn't that one of the major routes for people to get out of downtown, to get to the Gardner, to get to the lakeshore? With that being closed, that's going to cause some major headaches, especially with the Union Station next door there.
Well, absolutely. And so you're seeing the sidewalks very busy, Dwight. A lot of people walking, choosing, I suppose, not to drive, not to take transit, not to deal with the hiccups. Hiccup is an understatement, but the challenges, the gridlock that's out there right now. But this is absolutely a main route through the city. There's several of these, though, and they do all sort of dip down, so you can understand why this area might have collected water in the way that it did. However, obviously, something compounded it, something made this particular section worse, to the degree that we would have water coming all the way up to, as I mentioned, past where I'm standing at this point, and being able to trap a vehicle. But you've seen the pictures, you've seen the videos of various roads through the city, highways, deep with water. after this really, really unusual flooding event. I also talked to some tourists too, Dwight, some that were planning to go up the CN Tower. But I tell you, they are lucky that they did not get trapped up there during the power outage portion of this, Dwight, because that would be a lot of stairs to take down.
Quite the walk to come down from there. And you know, the spot you're standing, if I remember correctly, a Maserati got stuck there in some flooding of another major rainfall maybe about a decade ago. Right now, I'm wondering, though, with what's happening with where you are, Jacqueline, why don't they open that road? Because it is one of the major routes to get out of the city. Is it the issue of what's been left over for the flooding? Is it that car behind you that's stuck? Why are they keeping that one closed at this point?
Well, Dwight, you know what's really interesting? I think even just in the time that we've been having this conversation, we've seen more of the water recede.
Okay.
So as I'm looking behind me, I'm seeing more of a slimy film left over, Dwight, rather than the water. So, you know, it could be opened up fairly soon, but they might have still some cleanup to do here to make sure that that it is good for drivers. But yeah, when I first arrived, this side was flooded still, and that side was as well. And so it has been receding, like that constable was telling you. So it's one of those things that it's going to take some time for this water to get off the roads, to make its way back into the sewage system, or into the sewage system in the first place, to you know, clear the way for people to be able to get home today, Dwight.
Thank you for reporting from that smelly mess you're dealing with right around you there. And in white shoes, no less, you're walking down there on that slimy surface. CBC's Jacqueline Hansen onto the bridge in Toronto.
And these are just some of the images that we have been showing you. There you go. That is, there's Union Station again. Just a mucky mess for so many people in the city. Look at that. Another car that has been submerged. We've got dozens and dozens of photos just like this. People either abandoning their cars. There we go. Other images of just what a mess this has been on this day. That is, I believe that was the Don Valley Parkway there. We're also hearing from the Premier of Ontario, who spoke to media a short time ago, and he said, thank God everyone is okay. We have much more special coverage coming up on CBC News Network.
This isn't just the Olympic Games. This is the world stage. This is passion, power, and buckets of perspiration packed into every frame. Legends are made in the flash of a second. For 16 days, stars will walk the earth and light up the world, along with millions of fans, all in one place. Paris 2024 on CBC and CBC Gem.
Transportation hub Union Station, as I have been mentioning, is also experiencing some major flooding as we're starting to approach rush hour. The CBC's Lisa Shing is there on the scene. So Lisa, what's it been like there?
Hey there, Andrew. It's pretty chaotic outside and inside. I don't know if you can see people, just a constant stream of people coming and going. A lot of people who have been let out early for the day, who work in offices here in downtown Toronto. They've shut down, so they're trying to get home, coming here and sometimes not realizing that some of the trains aren't running. Others that are extremely, extremely delayed. We're also getting word from people waiting on the platforms that it's hot down there, and it's a mess, essentially. Staff have roped off a lot of the flooded areas in Union Station. We saw some pictures from earlier today of people kind of wading through, several inches of water, trying to get to where they're going, trying to get to the trains. And it seems like that is still the case, but that a large part of those areas are not accessible right now because staff have cordoned them off. So a lot of people who are frustrated, a lot of people who are also patiently waiting for service to start on some of the trains in order to get where they're going. So I can also tell you, Andrew, that from Toronto Fire, they're saying that they rescued 2 people from flooding on the Don Valley Parkway, one of the major arteries in the city in Toronto's East End. That's at Bayview and Don Valley. They rescued 1 person, in fact, from on top of the roof of a car as a result of that flooding, and 1 person in a car. Another 12 people they rescued from flooding further down at the DVP and Gerrard. And Toronto Fire says they've also responded to an extremely high number of rescues related to flooding and also people stuck in elevators as well. So needless to say, the city is a bit of a mess right now, pretty chaotic, and we're still hearing about outages from right across the city too, and some of that is slowly starting to be restored, but I think we're going to be seeing the effects of the rain and the flood for a while.
I think you're probably right about that. And so, Lisa, just getting back to Union Station, so is it your understanding that are there trains, are there subways? I mean, this is the biggest commuter hub in the country where you're standing right now. Is it moving, or is it just, it's chaotic, there are just long delays, hard to get to certain train platforms because of all the flooding?
Absolutely. So it is moving-ish, is the best I can say, essentially, because some of the platforms are inaccessible as a result of the flooding, and some are, and staff are saying you really have to check with them and also check the boards, but also they're still trying to update all of that in real time because it is a fluid situation, no pun intended, but the VIA trains are moving is what I'm told, but they are extremely, extremely delayed as well. So I think the safe answer is don't expect to get where you want to go anytime soon.
And so, Lisa, just someone who lives and reports in the city, the rain has stopped right now, but there was just so much rain. Can you just kind of describe what you felt and what you saw when that rain was coming down?
Yeah, absolutely. I was out, and it was a lot. I was under the Gardiner Expressway, so the main highway coming in and out of Toronto, and it looked like several waterfalls as some of the water, the rain from above, was basically channeling down to the ground below. Lots of splashes, and it was relentless, frankly, something that I haven't seen in a long, long time here in Toronto. We get those thunderstorms, and there's a lot of rain for a shorter period of time, but it's been quite a while, at least personally for me, since I've seen this much rain sustained for such a long period of time. So it certainly came down.
And you know what? I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, Control Room, but I think we're looking at Union Station, one of the entrances there. We are. They're at 25 York. That is definitely one of the entrances to Union Station. That is unbelievable. I hadn't seen those images. We have also been showing, maybe we can try and show them again to you, but we've shown some cascading water coming down the steps. That is also Union Station. So you've had a little peek inside Union Station. It just must have been a complete mess.
It's hot, it's sticky, people are impatient. Well, some people are impatient, others are kind of just accepting their fate essentially about the fact that this will be a very, very long day for them. We got a peak. There is flooding, but those parts are actually not accessible to us right now because staff have cordoned them off, including one of the entrances, if you can see behind me. So they have staff and they also have yellow tape at any of the entrances that are actually leading to parts that are flooded. So there's some people power, if you will, that they've brought in to try and make Union Station as safe as possible. But as I'm speaking with people coming out, milling around, they're still saying that it's a mess in there, and we will go inside shortly and try and see for ourselves as well.
And Lisa, you just described a little bit of the frustration. What have people, as they've been walking by and you've been able to speak to just people, can you tell us a little bit more about what they've been telling you about what this day has been like?
You know, some people have been kind of saying, okay, well, we get an early day, but not that they can get anywhere, right? A lot of people also kind of resigned to their fate, saying, it is what it is. You know, we're not expecting to get home anytime soon. We're going to try and wait it out, essentially, kind of looking bored on their phones. I've seen some tourists kind of a little bit bewildered, if you will, kind of not knowing what they're going to be doing, trying to get to some of their destinations as well. So it's a lot of different people trying to get places and not succeeding, essentially.
Now, Lisa, you know, I don't know whether, I mean, we knew that there was going to be some rain today. We knew that there could be, you know, a significant amount of rain, but it seems to have caught some people by surprise. Is that the kind of impression you got, just that there was just so much in such a short period of time?
I think for a lot of people, it was on the radar. I mean, I checked the weather myself yesterday and I saw 80% chance, you know, and I thought, okay, it's going to rain, right? But I think it's the amount that has fallen in a short period of time. The fact that, as I was saying, it just came down in sheets and sheets, and it was pretty unrelenting. And the fact that, you know, we've talked about city infrastructure as well, saying that it cannot handle that much rain in that period of time. So, yeah, it definitely caught people by surprise. I mean, also, you know, in another way, I don't know how people could have planned if they're commuting, especially from Union Station, if they're taking the trains. And so a lot of people just saying, you know what, we'll get there when we get there.
Lisa, appreciate your reporting throughout the day for us. Thank you. We'll be back to you soon. That is CBC's Lisa Shing, live in downtown Toronto's Union Station. I mentioned that Ontario Premier Doug Ford is away from Ontario right now. He's in Halifax for the Premier's meeting. He was asked about the severe weather that hit the Greater Toronto Area today.
No, Toronto Police was overwhelmed with phone calls initially. No, but as far as you know, no real, no real disasters.
Not that I'm aware of. I'll reach out to Mayor and have a conversation. We just, as you know, just got out of that meeting. They've been updating me throughout the meeting. But I think everyone's safe and sound, thank God. It reminds me of was it 2013, I think? Yeah, that was a pretty bad flood as well. But thank God everyone's okay.
Will the province be providing any emergency aid to Toronto?
Well, we've put about $2 billion in the infrastructure side. So we're there to support them. They have the money. We're making sure that we upgrade a lot of antiquated piping throughout the entire city there. But we're always there to support our municipalities across Ontario.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford speaking from Halifax. We have an update now from Toronto City Hall. The Deputy Chief of the city's fire service spoke a short while ago about how they are responding to a large number of calls that have been coming in, including for people stuck because of this flooding. Let's listen in.
As the city manager noted, we've been monitoring this all day. We certainly are very active right now. We're fluctuating between 75 and 80 calls, which for us is quite a bit. The important messages that we want to get out again is, number one, as the city manager noted, everybody just be safe. This is another extreme weather event. The fortunate and unfortunate thing is this is not the first time this has happened. So Toronto Fire Service, and we're working collaboratively with Toronto Paramedics, Toronto Police, and Toronto Emergency Management. We're prepared now for this. So we are triaging calls, obviously based on risk to life. There are a number of calls right now where we're actually removing individuals from cars that are stuck. There's going to be certainly a lag time on response for non-life-threatening calls. But again, this is something that we are prepared for. This is something that we have policies and procedures in place for, and we are triaging our calls. But we are certainly exceedingly busy. But it's nothing that we can't handle. And those that require our help, and there's any risk to public safety, are going to get it first. And those that, for example, might have alarms ringing in their buildings because of the water coming in through the roof, as I've been updated on, and through their basements, we will get to you. But again, Toronto Fire will be triaging our calls based on risk to life.
You said that there's priorities in place, but the DVP, this has happened there before. There are going to be questions about why it wasn't shut down earlier. Why can you tell us an early assessment of why it was not shut down earlier?
No, Toronto Fire has nothing to do with shutting down roads. We are called to respond when there's an emergency, but we certainly don't have the legal authority to shut down any roads.
Are the majority of your calls that you're getting right now about flooding and that kind of thing?
Yes, certainly there's a real trend right now. So certainly water problems, multiple calls of people's houses with water, apartment buildings with water. A number of alarms, fire alarms are activated when water comes through and trickles into control panels. A number of elevator rescues as well, very similar, malfunctioning elevators. And then we have several instances right now. As I said, we're actively rescuing people that are trapped in their cars or on top of their cars right now. But again, this is something we train for. This is something we have policies and procedures in place. This is something that candidly our staff are very good at doing. It's just at this point now, it's just a call volume issue. We are triaging based on life safety. We have supervisors up in our communications center right now, and I've been actively in touch with all of the operations commanders throughout the day.
Can you just talk a bit about, I think people think about Toronto Fire, they rightly think about battling fires, but this is a whole other kind of side of what you guys do. Can you just talk a bit about the training and what your members do on a day like today?
Oh, certainly. I mean, listen, we work collaboratively with Toronto Police, Toronto Paramedics, and Toronto Emergency Management, and all city divisions in instances like this. So we are the all hazards response. Anything that goes bad in the city of Toronto, Toronto Fire is generally the first one on scene. This is not the first time we've had a significant flooding event, and we have learned from those previous ones. So we have different equipment now. We've increased our training on water rescue. We have different types of rescue boats that are being deployed right now. We've increased the number of staff that are trained to do swift water rescue, elevator rescue. And again, our communications protocols change when we have extreme weather events like this, and our call volume at this point is basically triple our normal hourly average. So, we learn and we improve on every type of incident. As the city manager noted, this is not the first extreme weather event we've had, and this probably won't be the last. And as we do with all major events, we will do an after-action review following today's events once the rain stops and see if we can take further steps to improve our service to the citizens.
Deputy Chief Jim Jessup from Toronto Fire. The CBC's Greg Ross is in the downtown core on King West. The situation there much improved. Greg, what are you seeing where you are, sir?
Dwight, I can tell you that this is an area of King Street West in downtown Toronto that's been under construction for several weeks now. They're replacing the streetcar tracks here, and I'm not sure, I haven't been able to confirm whether or not that construction has had some impact on the storm drain system here, but I can tell you, when we had torrential downpours just before noon today, the water accumulated fast and it all pooled right under this bridge just ahead of us here. This is a train bridge. It's a giant train bridge with this underpass here on King Street West. And I can tell you that it looked more like a river than it does right now. It's hard to tell that it was actually flooded over just a couple of hours ago, but just before noon today, it literally looked like a river running through here. It got so high. We've got this raised sidewalk here on both sides of the road here, and the water levels got so high that it was starting to pour over the sidewalks. And we had people that were trying to cross through, like you see people now crossing under the bridge, that were trying to make their way along, and they were hit by about maybe a foot of water as they were trying to go through. We had delivery drivers, people on their delivery bikes trying to get through here. This is a main area for them to get through. Some of them on electric bikes trying to get through that water. Some of them did make the attempt to try and get through. We saw at least one of those delivery drivers get bogged down in the water, so creating some havoc. We know that there was some construction crews in there when the flood hit, and they were having some difficulty getting out. There was actually some sort of moving truck that got stuck in the water just on the other side of this bridge, so it created a lot of problems. But to make matters worse, this whole area lost power. In fact, we had just a whole row of businesses just on the other side of the camera here. They not only lost power, they were damaged by the water as well because there was flooding in their basements. We talked to one of the business owners there that told us they had maybe about 5 inches of water in their basement. It damaged some of the stuff that they had, the food that they had stored down there and that kind of thing. So creating a lot of problems. They were without power for a couple of hours. We were talking to people who were attempting to go for lunch at around noon, but all the businesses around here had to be shut down because nobody had power. And of course, we were all dealing with the problems with the flooding. No reports of any injuries or anything like that. That's the good news. They were able to get this bridge closed down so that people couldn't pass underneath it while those water levels were so high. And once the rain stopped, or even just slowed down, it was unbelievable how quickly the water just drained. It was gone within just a few minutes. You just watched the water levels. You could see them just lowering as this started to drain away. And then within minutes, like I said, it was not only the water was gone, the sun came out, and it was hard to tell we even had flooding here, but definitely leaving behind some disgruntled business owners and some people that weren't able to get lunch today, causing some problems for people. But it seems like everything in this area now seems to be back on track.
And the difference is incredible from the pictures you were showing us of that river onto that bridge to what we see now. And that's, I'm guessing, close to Liberty Village. We drive through that area all the time and know that spot well. I've never seen it like that. Greg, you and I have been covering, and Andrew too, we've been covering news in this town for a very long time. And I've actually covered, and I think you have too, some flooding in that area. But have we ever seen it that high that it actually got up to the sidewalk?
I've never seen it. And I live in this area. I can tell you, I've never, ever seen it get that high. I was talking to one of the construction workers. He says, I got here late because at one point he says it was about 2 feet higher than those pictures that we were able to show you. So it got really bad. It happened very, very quickly. Like I said, there were some construction crews working on the tracks under the bridge when it happened. They had to quickly get out of there because they just started to come up. And I think what they're going to take a look now at, Dwight, is whether or not the storm drain system was clogged for some reason, why it was clogged, why it wasn't functioning properly. But that's obviously, there are obviously some questions there that need to be answered because we could be looking at more torrential downpours later out throughout this summer, and they need to have this problem fixed so we don't see something like that again.
A good observation on your part that we have to wonder if the construction in that area has led to how high that water got and what's going on there, especially if this construction is continuing and we are going to get more. Greg Ross, live for us on King Street. Thank you, Greg.
And we are getting some breaking news that we want to tell you about, and that is that GO train service. Now, the GO train, for those who don't live in the Toronto area, is the commuter rail service that serves tens of thousands of people every day. We are learning that GO train service has been suspended until further notice. That's all the information we have right now, but that is a significant development. It probably may not come as much of a surprise given the major flooding that we've had in the city and the power outages. But it is approaching rush hour just before 4 p.m. in Toronto. And so now we're learning that the commuter rail service, GO train service, is suspended until further notice. We had been hearing from the CBC's Lisa Shing, who is at Union Station earlier, that the platforms were full, that it was very hot, that it was very chaotic in and around the country's biggest transit hub, Union Station. And we're learning now that GO train service has been suspended until further notice because of this day that we have had as we approach rush hour. We'll get you more information on that specific piece of information as soon as we have it. But I want to bring in right now Alina Kravchenko and Brett Westgarth. They are a Toronto couple that experienced the storm firsthand. Thank you both for joining us. Where are you now? You're home? You're fine? All's good? Okay. That's good. But I understand you were at Union Station in Toronto when this storm happened. Can you just describe, and you recorded some video. Can you just walk us through what you're going to show us?
Yeah, so I was just at lunchtime, ended up doing a little bit of an errand. I was going to the Nespresso to pick up coffee because I don't want her to be without her coffee in the morning. And as I was walking around Brookfield Place, ended up being closed off just due to the water. So I ended up having to walk around through the RBC Tower. And then going through, I noticed that in the subway there was a lot of water. But after that, just coming in down, there's a whole waterfall full of, just waterfall coming into the main area into Union as I leave the subway. And then just that whole platform there on my way to Nespresso was also just filled with water, so it was quite the trek to get there and then get back.
So, all right. So, sorry, I was just trying to kind of confirm, like, what's your video? So this is the video. So this cascading kind of waterfall down the steps at Union Station. This is what we have been showing. So you took that video.
Yeah, I took that video. That was kind of crazy. Sorry, I gave you more of a background on my whole walk, but getting into Union was crazy with the water coming down, and then after that they were closing down lots of parts of Union because flooding was coming in everywhere.
I mean, it's really unbelievable as we're looking at this. It looks like a waterfall going down the stairs. I mean, when you saw this and you got out your phone, what were you thinking?
I was thinking I've never seen a waterfall in Union before, so
yeah. Go ahead.
And then I was like, I gotta post this, and I didn't think it would gain as much traction, but here we are.
You Alina, you didn't think it would gain as much traction because a lot of people have been looking at this online?
Yes, a lot. It's like notifications on notifications. It's wild.
Yeah, we've been. I did not know that this was your video, and we've been showing it all day, and now we're talking to you about it. Can you describe just like what the scene was like there as you were taking this video at Union?
I wasn't taking the video.
Yeah.
Brett was taking the video, and then he texted me, and I was like thinking fast on my feet. Can I get this online?
It was a little nuts. It was pretty crowded and just lots of people trying to figure out where to go. Definitely, I'm surprised there's not more videos because lots of people were just amazed that water coming through kind of everywhere. And I saw lots of people on their phones as they were just showing how crazy it was because I've never seen Union quite like that.
And so, Brett, what did they say? You know, people just kind of look like they're just kind of walking around like it's just normal. I know it's not normal.
Yeah, walking through, usually just taking some video. I did notice a few people take off their shoes before because they had to get from one side of Union to the other, so there were a few people walking barefoot, which I wasn't sure I'd want to do in Union Station, but yeah, it was definitely something else. And yeah, just around the whole path, people were kind of getting turned around with what was getting closed off and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to kind of laugh at it a little bit, right? Because it's kind of like, this is crazy. Alina, now your apartment, I understand you have a view of the Gardner where you were recording the flooding. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so while Brett was sending that stuff, the fire alarm went off in the condo, so I went out because I didn't want to hear it anymore, and that gave me the perfect vantage point. We have like a corner unit so I can see the entire Gardner. I saw absolutely no one going westbound. It was fully closed, and I was like, all right, I got to start recording this one because everything going east towards the DVP was jammed, like not gridlock, a complete jam. People started reversing and were going backwards, and then actually were doing 3-point turns. So I was slowly filming that, and I was like, this looks like something from one of those movies. They definitely were there for a while. I kind of like kept looking back to see the progress, and slowly that lineup was getting lower, going towards the DVP because they were reversing, getting out of there.
And that is just, that's unbelievable, just seeing some of these images. And then, Brett, how did you get home?
The power actually went out. I work in Commerce Court, and as I was there, the power
that's
went
a building in downtown Toronto in the financial district. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, a building right downtown in the financial, just a couple blocks from Union Station. The power went out around a little after 1, And then from there, I ended up, I took the opportunity to walk home, and I was amazed. The whole walk home was just filled with people. I think a lot of the downtown was without power, so a number of people were making their way home. And then I did not see a single streetcar that passed, so I assume all those were down.
Oh, that's because they were all, we kind of live near the distillery, so all the streetcars were basically parked at the distillery loop. So there was 5 at one point that I saw there, and then 3 more that were around Front Street.
Wow, this is just really quite a day, but appreciate that you took some of this video, that you shared it with us, and that you shared your story. And glad to see that you're home and all is well. We'll see what tomorrow brings, but that was Alina Kravchenko and Brett Westgarth speaking to us in Toronto. Appreciate this very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, torrential rain has caused dangerous flooding on roads and highways in Toronto. This is a look again at Union Station, part of the Don Valley Parkway, which is a major highway in Toronto. It has been closed. Flooding has also been reported in other parts of the Greater Toronto area, in Mississauga, west of the city, and about 123,000 customers remain without power. This is CBC News Network. We are going to bring you special, extensive coverage coming up in just minutes from now. Hello, I'm Andrew Nichols. This is CBC News Network. We have special extensive coverage of the severe weather that's been hitting the Greater Toronto Area.
I'm Dwight Drummond. A line of severe storms has dumped torrential rains on much of southern Ontario today, causing flooded roadways and widespread power outages. We're on top of all developments in Canada's biggest city and beyond in the CBC News Network special.
Now, today's severe weather is our top story. The Greater Toronto Area was hit with torrential rainfall a few hours ago. Environment Canada says nearly a month's worth of rain fell over a very short period of time, more than 100 millimeters. Streets across the region are flooded. Toronto Fire Services says it has rescued 14 people from the flooding. There was also a major power outages. At one point, tens of thousands of customers were without electricity. We begin with the CBC's Jacqueline Hansen in downtown Toronto. And so, Jacqueline, just tell us about what it's like where you are. Tell us where you are right now and what it's been like there.
Well, Andrew, things are getting moving here, which is a good sign for many people. One side of the traffic here is flowing, so you can see some cars making their way through. But this whole section had been completely blocked off. It had been flooded quite a bit, quite deep, to the extent that, as you can see here, a car was trapped. This taxi cab was trapped in the water. It was a tricky situation for the taxi driver. In fact, he's here with us. He's just trying to flag down some other vehicles to try to get some help jumping his car. The battery is not working for him right now. He's waiting for a tow truck to come. So that is also a challenge for getting traffic through this situation here. Surinder, do you have 2 seconds to chat about your experience real quick? We're live right now. I know you're right in the middle of things, but can you tell us about the moment when you were driving down here and the water stopped your car? You weren't able to get any further.
Yeah, when I enter over there, that time I see the water is low to high. When I enter here, water at a time coming and he fill up my car. I get out of my car and car is no move. This side, that side, car stuck there. That's the problem.
And you weren't alone in the car, right? You had some people with you?
One guy with me. We get out both.
How tricky was it to get out with the water?
Water, my trunk is, my door is open, right? I push my door is open, and he sit on the back side, he come in the other side, and we get out both.
So that's pretty lucky. I mean, I'm sure the pressure was pretty strong from the water.
Yeah, pressure is very high. Car filled up already within 3 minutes.
This car is important to you. You've been driving it. You've been driving this car for 10 years now.
Yeah, I know this car is important. What do we do? Yes. The problem is...
What is your plan? You're waiting for a tow truck?
I wait for tow truck. I take the garage and fix the car over there, see what happens.
Because right now the battery's dead, you can't move it, and we're...
At least I move the car in one side and let people go. I don't worry anything, but I want to move my car. I call my friend, somebody coming and, give me boost and move, maybe try.
So right now, with your car in the situation that it's in, you're worried about the people around you. You're worried about people being able to get home.
Yeah, that's it. I worry about those people. I don't worry about car. Car is I fix over there.
You can fix your car, but getting people home is an important thing today. Well, we hope that you get a tow truck soon. Surinder.
I wait for tow truck 3 hours. That tow truck is not show up.
Well, that's the tricky part right now. Surinder, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. The tricky part right now, Andrew, is you can see the traffic moving, like I said, on the one side, but it is jammed. It is jam-packed downtown. Now, it is always very busy downtown in rush hour, but, it really got backed up when the power went out and all of the street lights went out as well. That caused a bit of chaos, some real gridlock downtown here in the core. And then you have sections like this one that we're in right now that flooded, that just stopped everything in their tracks. So now that it is moving somewhat, at least on the one side here, that's a good sign. But We have to get Surinder home. We got to get his vehicle out of here. He's got to wait for that tow truck to come before we can get traffic moving on that side.
I mean, that's quite the story, right, Surinder? He's like, he just wants to get his car out of the way, because we should mention you're in downtown Toronto. That is like a road that is very heavily used. That tunnel is very heavily used. He just wants to kind of get it off to the side so that people can get out of the city. I'm sure lots of people want to get out of here. What have you been hearing from people that have been affected by this flooding today, Jacqueline?
Yeah, well, I'm hearing from a lot of people that are just trying to get through it, right? They're just trying to get where they need to go. You're seeing a lot of people taking the sidewalks, a lot of people walking, a lot of cyclists taking this route still, even if it is a little bit, well, I mentioned earlier, it's a little smelly. It's not the nicest stretch to go through, but it is an important one, like you mentioned, Andrew, for traffic downtown, for vehicles, for bikes, for pedestrians as well. So they're just trying to make do with the situation. They're walking home if they have to. And when you think about some of the people who might have waited for a train to get them home, that train that maybe takes 30 minutes or something along those lines, trying to find another route is a tricky one. I understand there are some updates to the train situations right now, so important for people to check to see what's working, where they need to go so that they can get there. We heard the mayor talking about that earlier as well, the need to find a good, safe route home. I should also mention on the safety side of things, you don't know what has happened to the infrastructure around you in this area or in any area where there's flooding. There was some weakness in the median here just a ways back. Some of the concrete on the median collapsed when someone was standing on it. So you don't know what's going to happen when an area has been flooded. So be careful. Also, manhole covers, you got to be careful for that too. If you were to go wading into water, definitely not recommended. You should not be doing that because it's just not safe. We saw the city workers here doing that carefully, trying to check out the area that had been flooded to see, if there was something in particular blocking things. But that's what they're trained to do. That's what they should be doing. But as you can see, the water in this area has completely receded. And that's the situation that I'm sure many people are waiting for, that sort of update of water receding in the areas where they are, because we know that maybe this is one section here, Andrew, but there's been a lot of areas throughout the city where there has been flooding.
And can you just tell us, like up the street there, your camera operator was just showing us kind of up the street, north of you there.
Sure.
Yeah, and I just we will get to the GO train situation. That service has in fact resumed for a lot of GO train service. We're going to get to those details with Lisa, who's nearby. But just tell us about what you're kind of seeing. It looks like it's obviously that area has been cordoned off, and just the traffic around you.
Absolutely. We'll turn the camera back this way so we can see the traffic. There you have it. Not moving much at all. People are trying to find a route to get through, but of course they're coming to this area here where they can't. So they have to take a little side road. They have to do a loop around. It is not a situation you want to be in right now of trying to navigate this traffic. And also keeping in mind too, Andrew, that we have been hearing emergency vehicles every now and then. They need to get through this as well. Again, not an enviable situation to be in when you see that gridlock. Not a great situation to be on on a good day, Andrew, with rush hour traffic, but it's definitely compounded today. And we're just... Oh, I just see Surinder there. He's calling. I think he's still trying to get someone to help him out to jump his car to get things moving, Andrew, so that traffic can start flowing through here again and people can get where they need to go, because it's been a long day for some people with that power outage earlier as well, disrupting a lot of things. Yeah, crews are busy, Jacqueline, but we're hoping that Surinder does get that at least a little bit of a boost so he can at least get his car off of that road. Jacqueline, appreciate your reporting very much. Thank you. That is the CBC's Jacqueline Hansen right in downtown Toronto.
The Don Valley Parkway is a major highway stretching from Toronto's north into the downtown core, and at this time of day, it would be choked with traffic. We call it the Don Valley parking lot, but it's seen major flooding and access has now been cut off. CBC's Dale Manuknuk is by the DVP. Dale, what is it like looking like there now?
Well, Dwight, I don't know where to begin. I mean, you mentioned it. Usually on a good day, Toronto's congestion is out of control. And today it's way worse. You can see behind me here on Dundas Street, we are bumper to bumper. On the other side of Dundas Street is the on-ramp to the highway. Police have taped that off. But this has really become, Dwight, a photo op for a lot of people. You can see that behind me, there's so many people here that are taking a look at what's happening. I saw a family here earlier taking a family photo together. Let's show you what they're looking at. Here's the DVP right now facing southbound. You can see that the highway is flooded on both sides, northbound and southbound. And then on the opposite side is the Don Valley River, which is causing this spillover onto the highway. As you mentioned, it's a critical piece of infrastructure for not just Toronto, but all of the GTA. It is the only highway, along with the Gardiner, I guess, that leads into the downtown core. Now, on the east side of the highway, Dwight, you'll notice that there is a luxury car dealership. Bentley, Rolls-Royce, Bugatti, Aston Martin, Lamborghini, Land Rover. They have a parking lot over there just east of the Don Valley Parkway. It is below ground level. That parking lot also was flooded. It shares a parking lot with an office nearby. I spoke to a couple people there and people watching on the overpass. Here's what they had to say about what they're seeing today.
Usually when I get here, it's like the sewers would be overflowing. And I guess because of the dip in the road, once the overflow from the river hits, this is what happened. But I've never seen it this bad since in the years that I've been living down here.
Disbelief because I passed by like 2 hours ago and there was no water here, and when I came back it was right up there. So yeah, pretty upset.
What's the plan? We've seen some other people get their cars out. What are you going to do?
Well, I just climbed in. You can see I'm soaking wet. So I climbed in and it's flooded with water, so it's not safe to try and drive it right now. So I'm just going to try and wait it out and hope for the best.
That's why you'll hear in those clips there's a lot of background noise. There were car alarms that were going off while I was doing those interviews. Now, the DVP is shut down south of Bayview and Bloor all the way to the Gardiner. Toronto Police, Toronto Fire rather, have rescued, as Andrew mentioned off the top, 14 people so far. They're also assisting many other people who are without electricity and trapped in elevators. Now, we did catch up with Mayor Olivia Chow, asked why the DVP wasn't shut down earlier while they knew ahead of time that the rain was coming. Have a listen.
I was assured that the emergency service and the management team have been activated early today, this morning, and we know the rain, we can tell it's coming. Maybe the severity of it caught people by surprise, I don't know, but it certainly caught other people by surprise. I had staff that had to go home because the house are flooding, the ceiling are leaking. So I don't know why DVP wasn't closed.
So this flooding, Dwight, causing all kinds of congestion around the city. A big chunk of the DVP and the Gardiner closed. It's spilling all of that traffic onto the side roads like Dundas Street, where I am. We're going to keep an eye on the traffic as we go throughout the day. We'll send it back to you.
Before we let you go, Del, have you heard about any rescues where you are? Because we're getting some reports from Toronto Fire north of where you are, up by Bayview, that they were able to rescue some people from their vehicle. Anything like that in the scene where you are?
That's correct, Dwight. Toronto Fire rescued 2 people earlier in the day. One was trapped inside their car, one was on top of their car, and then later on is when they said they rescued an additional dozen people, and that was north of Bayview and the Don Valley Parkway, just over that way near Gerrard. So they have rescued 14 people as of now. We'll see what happens the rest of the night.
Appreciate the update. The CBC's Dale Manukduk over the Don Valley Parkway in Toronto.
Unbelievable images there, the flooded parkway. Toronto's main transportation hub, Union Station, is also experiencing major flooding, and the CBC's Lisa Shing is there on the scene. And Lisa, you do have an update, some good news in terms of trying to mitigate the commuter chaos that we have seen today. Tell us what you know.
Right. Hey there, Andrew. So a bit of an update for people trying to commute. Not much of one because a lot of the GO trains running out of Union Station are still canceled as a result of the flooding. But a few updates here. So we're hearing from Metrolink that runs the GO trains. They say the Kitchener GO line, the GO trains are now serving customers between Union and Bramalea GO. And customers going past Bramalea will still be provided with access to GO shuttle buses. As for the Lakeshore West GO line, trains continue to not stop at Exhibition GO or Long Branch GO. They will also be running adjusted service this afternoon, and so some trains between Union Station and Oakville are canceled. As for Richmond Hill, train service this afternoon, they say, will depart Union on time, but will detour on different tracks to make all the stops between Langstaff and Bloomington GO, adding additional travel time. So I think the overarching message here is that there are going to be major delays if you're commuting out of Union Station. This afternoon, I spoke with several people who kind of are just in a wait-and-see situation. Some people trying to get to Brampton. Their train is canceled, so they were trying to see about an Uber, which they say roughly it costs about roughly $60 on a normal day. Now, with surge pricing, considering all this traffic, they showed me their phone, costing them upwards of $200, Andrew. So a lot of people just kind of feeling a little bit defeated about how exactly to get home. So they're wandering around kind of waiting for things to get better. But we are hearing that a lot of the platforms, some of the trains won't be running for the foreseeable future because of that flooding that brought up sewage onto some of the floors that were flooded. And so that's going to take a little while to clean up. So for some people, you know, if they can't get into that Uber, they'll be waiting for a little while to come.
So Lisa, can you just, I mean, it's usually busy around Union Station, but it looks particularly busy as I'm watching people walking past you today. You know, what more have they been, I mean, the surge pricing, I don't know how a lot of people are going to get home. It sounds like they're going to be doing it the old-fashioned way on their feet if they can, but, you know, that's the whole point of Union Station. A lot of people live in the suburbs and need those trains to get home and certainly can't afford $200 to get into an Uber. What have they been telling you around you, and what's the traffic been like right in downtown Toronto around Union Station?
Yeah, Andrew, I mean, foot traffic, car traffic hasn't relented since I got here a couple of hours ago. People streaming in and out. And so it's actually looked like rush hour from, you know, roughly 1 o'clock on because a lot of the offices have let out early as a result of the power outages. A lot of people waiting on their phones, checking those apps. Someone else I spoke with was trying to get a ride-sharing app, another one, and wasn't able to get one at all, actually. So there seems to be a lot of resignation among the people that I spoke with. No one was was able to go anywhere on foot, as you say, because they all were going to Oakville or Scarborough, for example. And so some were going to try and attempt the TTC, but we know that the TTC, a lot of places are not running right now either. So it really is just a big wait-and-see game, and also a mess right here at Union Station. It's hot in there. The platforms are full. And people say that they've been coming out saying they can't wait there anymore because it's getting too hot for them down there. So they're just going to have to wait a little bit longer.
And Lisa, Dwight just helpfully reminded me, he's sitting next to me, that 300,000 people go through that train station every single day. So that is just how many people could be affected by all of this, by all of the delays. I'm seeing some people in some vests there behind you. Are there people there trying to help people out, answer people's questions as best they can?
I mean, I think at this point there are few answers. Yeah. A lot of people, the staff I spoke with say that you just need to watch the boards. But then I spoke with someone who was looking at the board and just saw their train disappear from the board. And so it seems to be a fluid and ever-changing situation here. Those people in vests that you were talking about, they've blocked off one of the entrances to the basement of Union Station, to the lower level, because of that flooding. And so I'm seeing a lot of caution tape around some of the those entrances that go downstairs because it's a bit of a hazard because of that sewage that has come up with the flooding. And so they're going to be spending quite a bit of time cleaning that up before it's safe again for people to go back down there. And that's why so many of the trains are not running, and the ones that are running on a limited schedule or a very delayed schedule with a few buses or shuttles as well, trying to get people to where they're going. But a lot of the people I spoke with, the majority, I think, are pretty much stuck, either because so many people are taking the few trains that are running, or they can't find another way to get home.
Wow, what a mess. Lisa, okay, thank you. The CBC's Lisa Shing live at Toronto's Union Station. Now, Ontario Premier Doug Ford, he's away from Ontario right now. He's in Halifax for the Premier's meeting. He was asked about the severe weather that hit the Greater Toronto area today.
No, Toronto Police was overwhelmed with phone calls initially. No, but as far as you know, no real disasters.
Not that I'm aware of. I'll reach out to Mayor and have a conversation. We just, as you know, just got out of that meeting. They've been updating me throughout the meeting, but I think everyone's safe and sound. Thank God. It reminds me of was it 2013? I think. Yeah, that was a pretty bad flood as well. But thank God everyone's okay.
Will the province be providing any emergency aid to Toronto?
Well, we've put about $2 billion in the infrastructure side, so we're there to support them. They have the money. We're making sure that we upgrade a lot of antiquated piping throughout the entire city there. But we're always there to support our municipalities across Ontario.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford speaking from the Premier's meeting in Halifax. Now, our extensive coverage of the severe weather in Ontario continues after the break. You're watching CBC News Network.
We are experiencing a severe rainstorm. There's flooding. Please be safe. Don't drive on flooded roads.
This is a look at the country's busiest transit hub, Toronto's Union Station. Environment Canada says up to 125 millimeters of rain has fallen on the scene in the past couple of hours. Today, 2 hours of that rain was worth about a month's worth of rain on our roads. Roads across the Toronto area flooded and tens of thousands of people are without power. CBC's Greg Ross is in that downtown core on King Street West near what they call Liberty Village there. The situation much improved where you are, Greg, but tell us what was happening there before.
Yeah, Dwight, it is hard to believe that where I'm standing was, I guess, the epicenter of a major flood here in this part of, I guess, King Street in downtown Toronto, King Street West here. This is an area that's been under construction for several weeks now. They're replacing the streetcar tracks here. Not sure if that's had some sort of impact on the storm drain system here. We haven't been able to confirm that, but what we do know is just before noon today, when the rain really started coming down hard in this area, it quickly filled up underneath this bridge. It looked like a river going through this train bridge. It's train tracks that run over King Street. This is a massive bridge. It's very long. You can see people trying to walk through right now, but all the water that was accumulating on top of the tracks was coming through the drainage system and dumping out into the lower area here, and it was just collecting in the street. It was an incredible scene. Like I said, it looked like a river. There's a raised sidewalk on either side of the street here, about 2.5 feet above the road, and the water was up over that sidewalk in some areas, and people were having to walk through that. Some people attempted to walk through it anyways. Other people were trying to ride their bikes through it. We had a number of delivery drivers trying to make deliveries on their bikes that tried to go through about a foot of water that was under this bridge. So it was a pretty incredible situation as that water just came up so quickly and made this bridge almost impassable. But it caused some other problems in this area as well. We know that some of the local businesses, in fact, this line of businesses, this row of businesses over here, they not only lost power, the entire area lost power, but they experienced flooding in the basement of their businesses. So somebody told me it was maybe about 10 millimeters of water in the basement, 10 centimeters of water in the basement of those businesses, enough to create some damage when you think about the stock that they had stored down in their basements there. So there were some frustrated people over there. We know that the construction crews over here were faced with some major difficulties in the fact that not only did some of them get stranded when the water started to fill up, but they had a truck on the other side of this bridge where they store a lot of their equipment, and that truck got stuck in the flooding. It was bogged down. Half of it was underwater. So just an incredible scene here that happened so quickly. Within minutes, it filled up. And then it seemed once the rain stopped, it only took a few minutes for the water to drain out of here. Quickly, we saw the water levels start to go down. And now you see what we're looking at right now. You can barely tell that there was a problem here earlier today, Dwight. You see people going about their regular business now, going under this bridge. At one point, they had to close it down. Now it's reopened and everything is back to normal.
Well, Greg, that is the scene we're used to. That's what we're used to seeing there. But I guarantee you, people in the GT or anybody familiar with that area would be shocked by what they saw there with the water that high underneath that bridge up to the sidewalk when there's not a river on either side of it. So all this water came in from there. What are you hearing from the city as far as infrastructure issues? You mentioned that it's also a train bridge, but the Up Express goes from Union Station up to the airport over that bridge. Have you seen any train traffic at all where you are?
We haven't seen a lot of train traffic, but it's hard to see from where we're standing right now if there are trains that are running through that. But what I can tell you is, we did inquire a little bit about what caused this flooding, whether it was the construction that maybe clogged the storm drains here, or maybe there was some damage or work that was done on the storm drains. Obviously, this is a busy day for the city, so it's hard to get answers on many of these questions, but certainly those are questions that I think are going to need to be answered. And people who live in this area, people who are dealing with this today, are certainly going to want answers to those questions. And at this point, we're not sure. I talked to some of the construction workers who talked about how bad it was. One of them telling me that it was even higher before I got here. He wasn't able to say why the storm drain system wasn't working, but clearly something was blocking it, and the water just had nowhere to go. And it was pooled here under this bridge for about an hour today, and then power obviously out for about 2 hours. And we know that it was out all over the city. I'm hearing close to 200,000 customers without power for about 2 hours today. So just a crazy situation all over the city. And this is one area that suffered some pretty bad flooding.
It seems, Greg, that it would be pretty dangerous to have that happen there. Especially, I can imagine somebody maybe driving through in a smaller car, and if it came through really fast, that could create a really dangerous situation. So the city at this point needs to figure out why that water wasn't able to go anywhere. And you've been speaking to people. Were the drains clogged? Is that what you're hearing from some of the construction workers? Because they would have been under there as the water was coming.
Yeah, that's what it appears. It appears for some reason they were clogged. They weren't able to tell me definitively that that's what caused this. But obviously, as you said, this is for people who live in this area. It's not something we see every day. We haven't seen this. I've never seen it like this, and I've been here for quite some time. So it's not clear what caused it. Obviously, maybe there's something they can look into and figure out. But in terms of the dangers of going under here, you talk about how dangerous it was. I mean, I saw these delivery drivers. They're on a deadline. They've got to make their deliveries. And because of all the construction all over the city, there's not a lot of areas that you can pass and get under these tracks. And this is one key area, especially for some of those bike delivery drivers. So you saw them braving, like I said, about a foot of water. I saw one of them on an electric bike and it got bogged down. I don't know what kind of damage he did to his bike, but at the end of the day, some of the people were willing to brave those dangers, as you talked about, to try and get to where they had to go to make the deliveries that they had to make. Other people, I saw people walking in there realizing how bad it was, and they just turned around and said, forget this, I'm not even going to attempt to go through there.
Because their other option in that area would be the lakeshore, but the lakeshore was flooded too. They went to that King Street Bridge because they thought it would have been a better option, and today it was not. The CBC's Greg Ross in Toronto's downtown core. Thank you, Greg.
And we want to turn to Eli Glasner, who is in the heart of Toronto's financial district and has been talking to people left scrambling by all of this flooding. So, Eli, I imagine there were some pretty chaotic scenes there this afternoon. What have you been seeing?
I mean, a lot of scenes of frustration, certainly a lot of scenes of chaos. We were talking to Lisa about the situation at Union Station. I think what we're seeing here at the heart of the financial district was really just the overflow of people making their way up Bay Street, because the situation south of us at Union was so chaotic and there was so little communication at a time that tourists who had arrived in this city that were trying to get rides, trying to get lifts, couldn't get anywhere, and so we're just making their way north. I talked to a family of 4, their first time in Toronto from Ireland. You could see the kids sitting on the sidewalk, just kind of welting under the heat. They're trying to catch a lift. They've just been walking further and further. Another family, they wanted to show their uncle who came here from England, the CN Tower and the aquarium. It was shut. They were turned away. So again, they're making their way north. I saw a wonderful group of young women who were here to celebrate their graduation from Fanshawe College, and it was cut because of the power. They lost power, so they had to cancel the graduation. Now they're walking up Bay Street in their finery, beautiful gowns for the graduation, high heels, not meant for walking long distances, just trying to figure out what to do next. Certainly a lot of Bay Street traders who kind of acting like it was a snow day. You know, the power's out, their meeting was canceled, so, you know, a couple of them said we're going to hit the bars. The bars are still open. But I also talked to Batul, who was with her mother, trying to get her mother to an important appointment on GO train when it stopped. Take a look.
It was an interesting day. We got stopped. Our train just stopped out of nowhere, no context, because no one knew what was happening. And then we were told the flags went up and that Union Station had flooded and we would not be going to Union Station. And then we just kind of sat on the tracks for a while.
How long?
I honestly have no idea. I have no recollection because we were just sitting there and time just stopped existing. Everyone had to back up, and then there's like a loop that they did, and then we came through Etobicoke.
And what was the picture like at Union Station?
It's hectic. There's a lot of people that are actually stranded, and there's no food courts that are open there. So I feel bad for those people. Luckily, I was able to get off.
All right, get to your appointment.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
I almost missed my appointment. I came all the way here for this.
Thank you. So even though the water is receding, certainly I'm hearing, just as everybody streams by, a lot of confusion and frustration coming out of the overflow, essentially, from Union Station.
Eli, you usually, cover the arts and culture and the movies for us. This kind of feels like a little bit of a disaster movie. Fortunately, we're hearing that, no injuries. Some people have been rescued, but it has been a very dramatic day in Toronto. And I understand you have a good news story for us.
So it was kind of amusing. A number of times I talked to some tourists. There was a group from Brazil. There was a group from India. And they had a great time. They were enjoying the city. They said, Eli, what's wrong? What happened? I had to explain to them what has occurred, because they spent their entire time inside the Eaton Centre, which is this massive indoor shopping complex in Toronto. I imagine the good folks at the Eaton Centre were able to keep the power on and the debit cards running, so they spent a blissful 2 hours inside the shopping area, had no idea what had occurred, and then came out into the sun, and to see this, harried reporter asking them how they're faring, like, no, we're fine. What's wrong? What's the problem? So at least some people who chose to be inside before the rains and the power was cut seemed to do all right. So they had a happy ending to their adventure in Toronto.
That is great to hear. Glad that, they wouldn't even have known, right? Unless you had told them what was going on.
Yep.
Eli, thank you. That is the CBC's Eli Glasser live in downtown Toronto.
That's a good story. We're now going to Toronto City Hall. Mayor Olivia Chow is speaking about the city's response to the widespread dangerous flooding and power outages that has impacted over 100,000 customers. Let's listen in.
We've experienced a severe rain event. It's a storm. The lake level is lower than 2017, but still there was significant amount of flooding. The Toronto Emergency Management has activated the emergency operation centers, and we will let folks know that if the road is flooded, it's not safe, you don't go there. Here's some good news. The power are being restored slowly. Earlier on was 167,000 customers that were out of power. In Toronto Hydro is now 109,000. And unfortunately, large part of the city still have not have their power restored. The TDC, especially in the Union Station area, experience flooding. But most of the stations and the buses, all of that is operating. But do plan ahead and check tdc.ca. Union Station has a lot of flooding, so that the TDC subways are bypassing that station. In terms of 311 calls, there's been 650 calls, mostly about basement flooding. And please be safe. Please be patient. Don't drive on flooded roadway, of course. Stay away from rivers, shorelines, streams, whether it's Humber, Rouge, or the Don River. The climate change is real. We're seeing the impact of it. These kind of severe storm is going to increase, even double the number of days in the next 15 years. So it's very important that we look at mitigating these kind of effect. We are managing the storm water. The impact on wastewater facilities have not had any, so that piece is good. Let me pass you to our city manager for an update, unless you have questions. No?
Thanks, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a significant event today, and we hope the Torontonians are safe and staying safe as we work our way through this. While the rainfall warning is over and the major rain has stopped, it will take a number of hours or longer for us to make our way through the significant cleanup. As the Mayor mentioned, the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority has advised that a number of waterways are above their normal levels and is encouraging everybody to stay well away from them. They are fast moving and can pose a danger risk as well. Lots of roads have been affected throughout the day, and they continue to remain affected. Lakeshore Boulevard, which is closed in both directions between Strachan and British Columbia Road, remains closed. There's a number of closures on the Don Valley Parkway, including both directions between Gerrard Street and Dundas Street. Southbound lanes are closed between Bayview or Bloor and the Gardiner Expressway, and northbound lanes are closed from the Gardiner Expressway to Dundas Street. Important to note on the DVP, once the water does subside and leave the roadway, our crews will need to get out for what's estimated to be 3 to 4 hours to clean the debris and the dirt from the road. So even when the roads are no longer waterlogged or water covered, there'll still be some work from our crews, so patience will be the name of the game. Bayview Avenue is closed between River Street and Pottery Road, and the Park Lawn ramp to the Gardner Expressway is also closed. So we'll be out cleaning up the roads. The best thing to do is to remain connected to the city's website, toronto.ca/road restrictions, and we'll keep that updated as much as possible. The mayor did mention that there's been significant impact to transit. Union Station, though operating in some capacities, has flooding issues. We do know that the TTC, as the mayor mentioned, is on bypass for Union. GO Transit is still operating when they can, but there's a number of delays, and anybody that's commuting through the GO network would be encouraged to go online, see how that's going to impact the journey home in terms of the commute today. There's also issues in terms of getting in and out of Union Station because of the impact of power outages and flooding. So be patient. Not as many doors are open, not as many access points to Union Station are there. So as large numbers of people try and make their commute home today, there will be people there to help get you in and out safely, but plan for a little extra time as you arrive at Union Station today as well. In terms of city services, a number of our city buildings were impacted by flooding or power outages. Thankfully, some of those are coming back online, but they were, some of them closed during the day. Our staff worked from alternative locations. From a recreation perspective, there's about 30 community recreation centers that are affected by power and flooding. We've kept the camps running for today, but if power is not restored, they will close at 6 p.m. this evening. So again, the city's website will give you the information that we can run the camps and do the things while there's some daylight, but as we get towards the dusk hours, we'll have to make a decision if there's no power to close those centers. 311 is experiencing higher volumes, as you can imagine, of calls. There isn't a lot of basement flooding that we're having called into 311 as well, so a little patience there, and we're trying our hardest to get connected with people as best we can. Public health has had to close 6 dental clinics and a breastfeeding clinic as a result of the flooding. Emergency services were very busy earlier in the day, including a number of rescues as the roads flooded very quickly today. Pleased to say that their call volumes are now back to very close to normal levels. But thanks very much to all of our first responders, police, fire, and ambulance today as they help keep people safe. So thanks to Torontonians and everyone that's been working hard. Thanks to the mayor and her team for all the work that she's been putting in as well. We'll get through this and clean up as best we can. And if there is any long-lasting impact in terms of infrastructure damage, we'll keep you updated as we go.
Thanks very much. So we'll do one question, one follow-up to make sure everybody has time to get questions in. And please just state who you're addressing your question to.
Probably the city manager. You mentioned the event is over, but it's going to take some time. You have to wait for the water to recede in some places. Realistically, can you give Torontonians some sort of time frame as to when normalcy might return, I guess?
So generally, we're saying there'll probably be 3 or 4 hours after the water's off the roadway for us to clean up the debris and the dirt to make them safe for passage. So assuming that there isn't damage as well, I think it's probably that 3 or 4 hour mark afterwards. However, if when the crews get on, there's damage to the roadway, we need emergency repairs, then the closures or specific lane closures could be longer. So we're going to see that in terms of the water, where the standing water and the flooding occurred on some of those roadways as the water recedes, and we'll keep people updated. But assuming that the roadway just gets cleared and it's debris, it should be an extra 3 or 4 hours, and then we're back in business.
When you look at something like Union Station, where we saw videos of significant amounts of water, same sort of idea there, or will it take a bit longer to make sure everything's...
Safety is always a concern. We have crews that are on site right now cleaning that up, vacuuming out the water, taking care of whatever those issues are. So we've been able to keep some of Union Station going. Our expectation is it'll be a bit of a rolling opening of the various parts of Union Station as the evening goes on. The good news is the rain's subsiding or stopping, and that way we can just get on with the cleanup work that's required.
Mayor Chow, question for you. The Don Valley Parkway, where it's currently closed, is known to be an area that's flooded for years when having a problem with being as close as it is to the Don, drainage issues as well. Why was a decision not made to close the Don Valley Parkway sooner in the areas where it's now flooded to prevent people from getting trapped with the cars like they have in this area?
I can't really answer that question. Maybe our city manager can, because these decisions are managed through the emergency management team that has been activated, And it is true that DVP has a history of flooding.
So I think, as always, we activated early on this. We knew that the rain was going to come. Certainly the volumes of rain were beyond what was predicted, and so that factors into the decision making. But once again, we'll review this incident as we review all incidents in our emergency management center, and decide what we've learned from this and what would happen in the future. So while it's known as an area of flooding, the prediction in terms of the amount of rain and what might be possible would have factored into those decisions. And as I say, there was a significant increase in the updates that we were receiving this morning in terms of rainfall from Environment Canada and the speed to which that happened than what we were receiving last night and into this morning.
Follow-up question for you, Mayor Chow.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of money that's been spent at the foot of the Don River to try to prevent flooding issues like this from happening, but yet we're seeing this one having happen today. And albeit there was a lot of rainfall, there will be people that will question as the money that was spent and how it was spent, and we're still seeing an issue like this one today. What is it you would have to say?
Yeah, you would note that the plugs that are blocking the Don River, the last one has not been removed. One is removed, then the water can flow completely freely into Lake Ontario. The last plug is still in there. Hopefully when the last one gets out, we are close to it. It should happen sometime before the end of the year. So next year, hopefully, this will be much better. On prevention and mitigation, if you think about if there is less concrete surfaces, if they are more porous surface, then the chance of the earth being able to absorb much more water is a lot bigger. So looking at interlocking bricks rather than just pure concrete so that the runoff won't be as severe, there's more absorption, whether it's in big parking lot or people, some of the spaces. So there are different mitigating actions that can be taken, and rest assured that the city are considering all of those incentives for whether it's public or private property so that there will be less basement flooding. If you are interested in terms of the TDC station bypass, other than Union Station, St. Patrick, Pape, and Lawrence subway stations are closed due to the flooding. So check. Might even have been open. Anyway, checked. Sorry, it's good. Okay, well, hey, this is a good thing. That information that is half an hour old, we are now opening it, so that's good. But do check Toronto TDC.ca to plan your trip home.
Any additional questions? Okay, thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hearing there from Toronto's mayor and city manager talking about the deluge of rain that we received in the city today. Of the 167 or so customers that were without power, she says that's down to 109. TTC is operating, but check ahead because some stations are being bypassed. We know that Union Station is problematic. About 650 calls to 311 for service, mostly about flooded basements. The mayor is warning everybody in the GTA right now to stay away from rivers and streams, and also letting us know that we have to pack our patience because the impacts of the flooding and the power outage will need us to be patient with each other over the next few days. A lot of people head indoors when you get a storm like today, but not everybody.
Not everybody, yeah. Mark Robinson is a meteorologist and storm chaser for the Weather Network. And where does he go? He goes outside. He joins us now outside, about an hour west of Toronto, so in Guelph, right? So, Mark, as we begin this conversation, we're going to show some of your video from earlier today. Tell us what it was like to be in that.
You know, I've been through hundreds of thunderstorms. I've been through 26 hurricanes. And it kind of reminded me a lot of hurricanes, just the amount of rain coming down. The visibility was so bad that I could barely see the car in front of me. And I knew that was headed for the GTA, and I got concerned about that. And what actually happened was not only did that first line of storms hit the GTA, the whole conveyor belt of moisture right behind that, brought that rain in. And this wasn't a very widespread event. If you think back to 2013, that hit the GTA, that hit Toronto, Mississauga region, but not really outside. But this one hit a very large area all the way to the west. And now, unfortunately, I'm looking at another round of storms headed towards the GTA, but I don't think it's going to go right into sort of the hardest hit areas. Looks like this one may be aimed a little bit more towards Hamilton.
All right, yeah, I was going to say, when I heard that maybe there might be some more storms coming, I thought, no, this is not what anyone wants to hear. I'm just wondering, you said it had that kind of almost felt like a hurricane. We heard Toronto's city manager speaking earlier, saying that the volumes of rain were beyond what was predicted. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And is that true? Is that the case?
Well, I mean, it's hard to predict the summer forecast, or the summer thunderstorms, are some of the most difficult storms to nail down because they can produce unexpected amounts of rain. This is pretty normal. When we work away at the Weather Network trying to get you that forecast, we were expecting some significant amounts of rain. But when it hits an urban area, that's the big issue. We've got a lot of concrete. I mean, if I'm standing right beside a road, there's your road right there, hard concrete, and right behind me, farmers' fields. So a lot of that water falling right into the farmer's field. That's not a pond behind me. So this is the big issue, is that we can get that flooding happening very, very quickly. If that rain had fallen, say, 50 to 60 kilometers north, which is very, very, very small distance when we're talking about thunderstorms, we wouldn't be talking that much about that because it would have fallen on the upper watershed. It'd be moving through and people would be commenting on the creeks. But because of where it fell, that was the big change. That was why we're talking so much about the flooding when it comes to this event.
And so tell us a little bit more about that, Mark, just in terms of it was just so much in a short period of time, right? And that's what, and then as you say, in some urban areas with the pavement and the concrete, there's nowhere for the water to go really quickly. And that's why people got stuck.
Yeah, I mean, that's classic urban infrastructure. It's from time immemorial, we've been sort of dealing with this kind of thing. But keep in mind as well, I mean, this is a farmer's field. Behind me, we're looking at what looks like to be essentially a gigantic pond. But because we've seen so much rain this year, even the grounds out here are completely saturated. So the water has nowhere to go. So we end up with these ponding problems, these flash flooding problems. And, this is going to continue as, we go into the rest of the summer. We may see more and more rain. We are looking at a fairly wet season this year compared to, go back a couple of years and think about how much, dry grass we saw. This year, very opposite to that. And we can't always predict these, but, climate change does make those extreme events, extreme years, more and more common. And that's, part of the problem that we're dealing with.
You're in Guelph, west of Toronto. So are you heading to Hamilton? Are you chasing yet another storm? And how bad could it be there? Hamilton being about an hour west of Toronto.
Yeah, well, I mean, this morning when I was, I got into those storms, there was a lot of rain, not a lot of wind. This one may have a little bit more wind than rain. We are looking at, 30 millimeters of rain with some potential for some strong gusts. We're keeping a close eye on it on the weather networks. We'll be following this one as it comes in. It's not going. I'm going to want to reassure everybody it's not likely to be anything like what we've seen already. These ones are moving fairly quickly. They should move through fairly fast. Don't worry. We're probably not going to see the almost 100 millimeters of rain that we saw earlier. But it's going to make some people sort of chew their fingernails just because it is just another storm on top of what we saw this morning.
I think there are some raw fingernails being chewed right across this area. Mark, thank you. Mark Robinson of the Weather Network reporting for us near Guelph, Ontario.
Some ominous skies above Mark there. Toronto's main transportation hub, Union Station, also experiencing some major flooding today. The CBC's Lisa Shing is there on scene for us. What is the update, Lisa?
Oh, well, Dwight, it is still a bit chaotic. Actually, not a bit. It is still chaotic here at Union Station. I have a brief update from Metrolinx that runs the GO trains out of Union Station here. An update here, Kitchener GO line. GO trains are now serving customers between Union and Bramalea GO. Customers going past Bramalea will still be provided with access to GO shuttle buses. As for Lakeshore West GO line, trains continue to not stop at Exhibition GO or Long Branch GO. And they'll be running adjusted service this afternoon with some trains between Union here and Oakville also canceled. And anyone getting to Richmond Hill, train service this afternoon will depart Union on time, but will detour on different tracks to make all the stops between Langstaff and Bloomington GO. So that means there will be delays and additional travel time. Needless to say, Dwight, it is a bit chaotic here. A lot of people trying to get home unable to because their trains are canceled. So one of them, not canceled but delayed, Ronica Dutta joins me now. Ronica, where are you trying to get to?
I'm heading to Mississauga, and TTC is having issues. Like there's no subway from Jane to Kipling. So I usually use the TTC, but with that not being accessible, I have to use the GO. And as I was talking to you before, like while I come to Union Station, I usually take the underground path, but that's been closed off. So you have to take the street level, which is again very chaotic. So it just makes me question that we have this rainfall, this weather, and the city just shuts down. It's chaotic. Everybody's trying to leave at the same time. So it's like, what is happening in the city, you know? And right before this, I was also trying to get some food. The Union Station lower levels are closed. So now we have to wait in line somewhere to get some food. So yeah, we'll see how I manage to get home, how long it takes me. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you so much, Ronica. So there you have it, one commuter out of many, out of thousands trying to get home today. Dwight, speaking of commuting, though, a lot of people who are trying to get Ubers are seeing surge pricing. Someone trying to get to Brampton cost them $200, where normally it costs $60 for them. So a lot of people are really stuck trying to get home today.
Yeah, a few 100,000 of them. The CBC's Lisa Shing at Toronto's Union Station. Thank you, Lisa.
And that is it for us today. Dwight, appreciate you being here to help along on a very, very unexpectedly busy news day. That is it. I'm Andrew Nichols.
I'm Dwight Drummond. Always a pleasure to be beside you, sir.
So this is a look, and this is a look at the Don Valley Parkway, as we've been saying, a major north-south traffic artery on the east side of the city. Sections of it are closed because of the flooding, just as rush hour arrives in Canada's largest city. Much more ahead.